Good evening. Good evening. We're going to start our agenda for tonight and call this meeting to order. Our first item is to do our flag salute, so please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we get started, I just also wanted to request that people not stand in the aisles or in the middle and just have a seat, please, for just emergency reasons if we need to. And the other announcement I wanted to make is that there is childcare available for our meeting, and it's in classroom 125 and 126. It's available from 6:30 to 9 p.m., and it will be staffed by volunteers from Glencoe and Liberty High School. So please make sure your child is picked up by 9, even if the meeting is not over. Thank you. Our next item is approval for the agenda. Looking for a motion.
I move to approve the agenda as written. Second.
So it's been moved by Mark Watson and approved by Martin Granum that we approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And our next item, we have audience time for... We have one intent to speak card right now. The rest of the audience time is going to be for the topic at hand with the CSE curriculum. For right now, we have Fabian Monroy.
Can we get more America in this monitor over here, please?
Yeah, we can't.
We can't hear it all.
We can't hear.
Okay.
Sorry.
There. So we have Fabian Monroy, who filled out an intent to speak card. Please come up. We have 2 mics on each opposite sides of the stage.
Sorry. Yeah.
Get right there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, members.
Oh, no, sorry. You, right
The
there.
microphone's right down behind you.
Right here. Down
Oh. Yeah, gotcha.
And while you get down there, Fabian, I'm just going to read our audience participation statement. So public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BDDH. Visitors who wish to speak before the board must complete an intent to speak card available in the lobby and provided to the Superintendent Secretary Kathy Wilson. Comments concerning a published agenda item are limited to its designated place on the agenda unless otherwise authorized by the board. Comments about non-agenda items will be heard at this time. Speakers should state their name and, if speaking for an organization, the name of the organization. A spokesperson should be designated to represent a group with a common purpose. 3 minutes would be allowed for an individual speaker. 5 minutes will be allowed for a visitor who is speaking on behalf of a group. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but in public sessions, the board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff member. Commendations involving staff members should be sent to the superintendent. Channels for the board's review of legitimate complaints involving individuals include board policy KL public complaints. If appropriate, the board chair will connect the visitor with an administrator to receive comments regarding personnel. Any hearing conducted before the board regarding personnel shall take place in an executive session. The board thanks all visitors for their presence and appreciates the input of community members. Go ahead, Fabian.
Okay. Well, good evening, members of the board, and thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you today. My name is Fabian Monroy, as you stated. I'm a resident of the city of Beaverton, iron worker by trade, and a member of the Iron Workers Local number 29. And it's thanks to this local union that and also with the help of my wife, who is a special education teacher for the Hillsboro School District, that we have been able to raise our 4 children. Now, with that said, I'm here to talk to you about the process of awarding contracts for general contractors, subcontractors for the work on the existing schools and the new ones coming out. Now, I have seen contractors working on some of these projects around the school district who do not offer an employer-paid full benefit package or any retirement package or any state-approved apprenticeship programs. Now, with that said, I'm here to bring a proposal to all the members of the board, and the purpose of this proposal is to ensure that the residents of the Hillsboro School District receive the fullest benefit of their taxpayer dollars with the construction of all the projects around the district. Now, Ironworkers Local 29 and its members, along with all the construction trades and all the construction workers who are residents of the Hillsboro School District, we recognize the importance of the work within the district for its potential to positively impact the local economy by utilizing local contractors, promoting diversity in the workforce, payment of suitable living wages, employer-paid family health insurance, pension benefits, and training opportunities. We believe that it's to the best interest of the residents of the Hillsboro School District to adopt policies like these ones, to promote vibrant communities within the school district. After all, these are all the people that you all represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Second.
So it has been moved by Martin and seconded by Vera to approve the consent agenda as posted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. And our next items are our action items, and we first have the proclamation of American Education Week.
Absolutely. So every year we have the opportunity to thank the educators that work in the Hillsboro School District for the work that they do. And before reading the proclamation, which does so in an official manner on behalf of the board, I'd just like to thank all of the educators that work every day to make a difference for the students that they serve. They're dedicated folks who show up every day and they meet the needs of our kids on an ongoing basis. So just my heartfelt thanks as we recognize American Education Week. And with that, I'll read the proclamation that makes that official, and the board will sign off on this. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our society, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they licensed, classified, and technical support staff, or administrators, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas our nation is celebrating the week of November 18 to 22 as American Education Week, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Hillsboro School District proclaim the week of November 18 to 22 as American Education Week in Hillsboro School District, with the theme, Great Public Schools, a Basic Right and Our Responsibility. The Board of Directors further encourages all citizens to extend their commitment to public education and to the future of our children by supporting our community schools through the contribution of time and energy.
Thank you. Looking for a
I
motion.
move that the Board of Directors proclaim November 18th to 22nd, 2019 as American Education Week in the Hillsboro School District. Second.
Okay, I heard Jackie, so it has been moved by Lisa and seconded by Jackie that the Board of Directors proclaim November 18th through the 22nd, 2019 as American Education Week in the Hillsboro School District. Is there any discussion? No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Our next action item is to accept gifts and donations with Michelle Morrison.
Son, hello. Directors, at your request, we have pulled the donations to the district over $5,000 or more in value to come to you in an individual board report every month, and this is your opportunity to approve that and accept those donations.
Jackie.
I just want to commend Patterson Booster Club for raising over $16,000 for classroom teacher supplies, iReady online learning, and chart paper, school printer supplies. I think it's absolutely amazing. That's a significant chunk of money, so congratulations on that.
I'm looking for a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors accept the donations listed in the board meeting packet.
So it has been moved by Jackie and seconded by Sheehan that the Board of Directors accept the donations listed in the board meeting packet. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Our next item is contract for new elementary schools in North Plains with Adam Stewart.
We skipped over the
Sorry.
budget committee.
It's actually appoint budget committee members with Michelle again.
Hello again, directors. We were just upstairs and we did the appointment process for our budget committee members, and we did tally the results. And I believe you have those in front of you. If you would like to make a motion to appoint our budget committee members for positions 5, 6, and 7, terms through 2022.
I move that the Board of Directors appoint the slate of candidates identified during the work session to the 3 vacant positions on the Budget Committee as follows. Appoint Alexander Diaz to position 5, which expires June 30th, 2022. Appoint Kim Strelchin to position 6, which expires June 30, 2022. Appoint Kevin Murphy to position 7, which expires on June 30, 2022.
Second.
So it's been moved by Martin and seconded by Adira that the Board of Directors appoint the slate of candidates identified during the work session on the 3 vacant positions on the Budget Committee as follows. Appoint Alexander Diaz to position 5, expires June 30th, 2022. Appoint Kim Strelchin to position 6, which expires on June 30th, 2022. Appoint Kevin Murphy to position 7, which expires on June 30th, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And now we move on to award contract for new elementary school in North Plains with Adam Stewart.
You have in your packet the bid results for elementary school number 28 in North Plains. As a reminder, we bid that project to our general contractors on the approval list, had 5 contractors submit bids, and so what we're asking is to award that bid to Kirby Nagelhout. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I move that the Board of Directors award the contract for the construction of a new 600-student elementary school in North Plains to Kirby Nagelhout Construction in the amount of $24,450,000.
Second. Okay, it has been moved by Mark and seconded by Lisa that the Board of Directors award the contract for the construction of a new 600-student elementary school in North Plains to Kirby Nagelhout Construction in the amount of $24,450,000. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. And a correction, that was not Adam Stewart, that was Casey Wolitich. Okay.
As Travis gets set and we are preparing for the next item that brought most of you here this evening, I just wanted to point out a couple different things that we are going to ask that you are respectful during this presentation. Erica will be reading some of the guidelines that we're hoping that you're following this evening. We also want to take this moment to thank Glencoe High School for hosting us this evening. As you can see, they have a play going. That play is going to open November 8th, so we'd like to invite you all to that. But just the work that they are doing on the sound, They had to cancel practice today in order for us to set up, so thank you to Glencoe High School.
So our next item on the agenda is a comprehensive sexuality education plan with Travis Raymond.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me? Thank you. My name is Travis Ryman. It's an honor for me to serve as Assistant Superintendent in the Hillsboro School District, and I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. During this process, I've had the chance to meet a ton of folks, so thank you for being here to support our schools, and thank you along the way in the process. I got to tell you, I have to wear this retainer because I had a tooth pulled out, and so I'm sorry that I can't talk as well as I normally can, and several folks here have been teasing me tonight, so I feel like I need to make a comment about it. They do it out of love, I believe. That's embarrassing. So before I get started tonight, I want to tell you that I'm part of an incredible team of educators and a group of partners who have participated in this work. And I feel accountable for supporting them. And to the extent possible, I want to address a little bit of damage that's been done in terms of the comments we've gotten and some of the social media activity out there. And I want to recognize and appreciate 4 groups of folks who have really put themselves out there in this process and who have been working a lot of hours and to the best of their ability in service of our community. First, I want to recognize our teachers and counselors. Some of them have come to me and said, "Whoa, is that what people are saying about us?" And my response is, you know, anything that's been said that challenges the integrity or the professionalism of our teachers and our counselors, I just want to put to rest tonight, and I want to recognize and appreciate them. I think our teachers and counselors have earned our trust over the years, and I'm really proud to serve alongside them in this school district, and thank you for your work getting us to this point. I also want to thank our Community Curriculum Advisory Committee. They're a diverse group of folks who invested hours of work starting back in January on the topic of comprehensive sexuality education. And this has been hard work for them personally, and I think as servants in our community as well. And I appreciate their contribution to this process, despite some doubts that we've heard in the community about who that group is and how we arrived at this set of products that make up our plan. I want to thank our interpreter and translator crew who have translated every document and presentation for our CCAC group. They've translated all the materials that we've produced so far, and our goal, although all the materials that we've curated from other sources have not yet been translated into Spanish, is that our bilingual community is served by a bilingual product, and the hours that they've spent alongside us deserve recognition. And to the extent possible, I want to say we have engaged our Latinx and Spanish-speaking community on this topic, and it wouldn't be possible without our interpreter and translator crew, so thank you to them as well. Lastly, before I get started with the technical report, I want to thank our board of directors for the flow of communication and the transparency that they've engaged in personally. I know you all have invested hours in reading emails and sharing them with us so that we have a chance to answer as staff, and that collaboration between the board and the staff has been, I think, exemplary, and I can't count the number of emails and minutes and hours you must have spent on this topic. So thank you for your diligence and for sharing information back and forth with us as a team and with our community members. Thank you. Let's see here. I'm sorry about the size of the screen. I hope folks can hear me, and I hope folks can see what's going on in the back. These are the values that HSD approaches every program development with: compliance with law and policy, research-based best practices, culturally inclusive education, trauma-responsive education, and we take into consideration the customs, beliefs, and values of our families. I want to acknowledge that there's an incredible diversity of opinion on this topic, and For every group of folks that I've met with that says that we're required to teach too much by the Oregon standards, there's a group of folks who says that they're disappointed that we're not doing more. And I just want to say for every person I meet, there's a perspective on this topic, and we all have our own. I want to recognize that those voices have been heard. There are 3 key laws that drive our development of a comprehensive sexuality education plan in 197 districts in Oregon. They are the Human Sexuality Education Law, the Healthy Teen Relationships Law, and what's known as Erin's Law, a law intended to prevent sexual abuse. What's new about this plan, we've had a comprehensive sexuality plan on the books. What's new in this plan is the transparency with which we've published resources down to kindergarten. As a former elementary principal, I can tell you that at kindergarten, what sexual assault prevention looks like is safe and unsafe touch, and setting boundaries and resisting bullying. We talk about consent and boundaries as we move up through the grade levels, as is grade appropriate. But I think part of the shock here is that folks have reacted with what? You're teaching comprehensive sexuality education at kindergarten? We do, according to the law, have a K-12 plan, and it starts young with concepts around setting boundaries and staying safe. In February, after we had initiated the process with the curriculum committee, Colt Gill, who's the director of the Oregon Department of Education, issued a letter to all the superintendents in the state reminding folks and directing us to implement comprehensive sexuality education, and that it needs to have these components. It needs to be part of health education, it needs to be comprehensive. Although we lead with abstinence education, abstinence only is not allowed in the state of Oregon, which is what he goes on to interpret as comprehensive. It needs to be inclusive, medically accurate, age-appropriate, standards-based, collaboratively developed, and it needs to include a recognition of the right of parents to be notified and to be allowed to opt out of sex ed. I want to quickly go through what we learned as a staff and as a curriculum committee starting in January last year. One of the things we learned is that we already have a lot of great resources in place, like second step curriculum and books, even at the younger grade levels. According to our principals, about 30 to 40% of what you see in the K-6 plan is new, and the rest is stuff that we've already had in play. We just have not had it named as part of our response to Erin's Law and comprehensive sexuality education. Something that's unique to HSD is the Community Curriculum Advisory Committee. This is a group that meets monthly. It advises the board on curriculum development and new courses. We learn together, we ask questions, give feedback. They work to improve the plans of teachers implementing new courses or the district implementing new programs, and they make a recommendation to the board that they ought to review a particular plan or course. In this case, they recommended that the board review our plan for comprehensive sexuality education. That group is conducted fully bilingually, sometimes sequentially, back and forth in English, and sometimes simultaneously, a person speaking in English or in Spanish with interpretation and headphones. We staff that meeting with several people to make that possible. We look at materials together, again, and give feedback on how to improve the product to meet the needs of our diverse community. On January 7th, we had Sasha Grenier come from the Oregon Department of Education. She's in charge of supporting districts in implementing comprehensive sexuality education plans. She told us about the incidences of suicide among students who identify as transgender or non-binary in our schools, according to local data, and the importance of comprehensive sexuality education in mitigating that negative impact of suicide on that population of students. She also talked to us about parent and caregiver engagement in this process. It's important that parents be notified when comprehensive sexuality education is happening. She told us that in Oregon, 90% of parents approve of sex ed, and that of course we need to facilitate an opt-out process. I'll talk about that in just a minute. On March 4th, we learned from Sheila Johnson, who works for the Oregon Health Authority. This is an interactive map of health outcomes connected to comprehensive sexuality education in the state of Oregon. You can see if you click into this map that Washington County has positive outcomes related to our comprehensive sexuality education because districts here do a good job in delivering that content, and we see fewer unintended pregnancies, we see fewer assaults. March 4th, we learned from Derek Travers from the Multnomah County Youth Sexual Health Project. He works for the Multnomah County Health Department. He taught us about how to understand and support non-binary and trans people in public institutions, specifically in schools. April 1st, we learned from Sheila Johnson again about the connection between sexual abuse prevention and comprehensive sexuality education. She provided a nice list of the solutions that sex ed provides us in terms of unintended pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, sexual violence, sexual harassment, bullying, child sexual abuse, perpetration of sexual violence, depression, suicidal ideation and suicide, body image, and intimate partner violence. We can predict better, more positive outcomes if we have comprehensive sexuality education in terms of these health outcomes. Sheila also showed where Aaron's Law is taking hold in the United States, and we are, I can't remember how many states, but we are, all the dark blue ones there are states that have Aaron's Law on the books, and we are just one of many. We invited Grace and Cecilia from SARC and Pacific University to talk about quality sexual violence prevention education. And we learned from our own Kristen Blomberg about gender stereotypes, gender identity, and sexual orientation. She taught us that our beliefs about gender affect the way we think about ourselves and the way we treat each other in this world. And I want to give a special thanks to Kristen Blomberg for her incredible work as our care coordinator for Aaron's Law implementation and as a leader in health education in Hillsboro. So again, here's a quick list of our partners. As required by the law, we need to collaborate with partners to develop this plan. And most of all, I want to thank our teachers and counselors and even our school resource officers for participating in training with us to keep our kids safe. September 24th, we announced the plan at a school board meeting. It went under 30-day review. This is coverage from the Tribune. October 1st, we had an open house. And really the concerns that we've been hearing fall into two large categories. One of the groups of concerns that we've been hearing are specific around the language that we're using, the names of body parts and the specificity of anatomy in our proposed plan, age appropriateness, and a general why. Why are we doing this and where is it coming from? That kind of dialogue and those questions have been really helpful for us in answering questions, answering concerns, clearing up misinformation, adapting our plan. And I want to thank folks for adding to the plan via those types of comments during our online comment box and in our interactions at open house and materials reviews. There's another group of concerns that have to do with an opposition to teaching about sexual orientation other than heterosexuality, and an opposition to teaching about gender identity and gender expression around the gender binary of boys and girls and men and women. And really, it's hard for us to meet those concerns because it's so clear in the standards in the state of Oregon, and it's so clear in our equity policy that we need supports for students who identify as members of LGBTQ communities, as well as staff and families, and inclusivity is a value both in our equity policy and in the standards. And so that has been an area, I believe, of conflict in the way that our current plan stands and the values of some of the folks that we serve in our community. And I just want to name that. I also want to thank the board again and staff for the hours that they've spent looking at comment cards and interacting with community members. We've had a venue where board members themselves interacted in a completely Spanish language venue around our plan online. We have 100% of the comment cards from our events since June going to the board electronically for review, as well as staff, and that's a lot of information in the raw form. I do want to point the board and community back to our equity policy. I'm going to read to you 2 paragraphs from our equity policy that I think are pertinent in supporting why why we have comprehensive sexuality education, and why it fits with our values, not only with compliance with the law in the state of Oregon. Our equity policy says that the Hillsboro School District shall provide multiple pathways to success in order to meet the needs of the diverse student body in terms of race, ethnicity, national origin, language proficiency, socioeconomic status, mobility, sexual orientation, perceived ability level or perceived or identified disability, and gender identity, and shall actively encourage, support, and expect high academic achievement for each student. The Hillsboro School District shall provide materials and assessments that reflect the diversity of students and staff and are geared toward the understanding and appreciation of culture, language, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, ability, and other differences that contribute to the uniqueness of each student and staff member. I want to tell you that I interacted with a parent at a materials review the other day who's an HSD kinder parent who is married to a transgender partner who told me the parents of students who want to opt out of sex ed lessons can exercise their right to do that. I cannot exercise the right to opt into a more inclusive school experience until our schools include books and lessons that include families like mine. I think this CSE plan shows that HSD is ready to affirm that some families have two moms or two dads. It is an acknowledgement that many of our staff, students, and community members identify as members of LGBTQ communities. And our goal as a district is to include all of us. And we should predict better academic and social outcomes because our schools are safe and inclusive as a result. This slide was supposed to have a nice little list of things that we have changed based on community input. We've gotten a lot of input that has helped us understand to what degree we've met state standards, and I want to tell you that teams of administrators and staff have looked over our plan to ask the question, in what way could we possibly have overreached or overstepped what the standards require us to teach? And we want the board to understand and our principals to understand that they can speak with confidence and say, we have met the standards or not quite, and in no way have we overstepped what the Oregon State standards have asked us to deliver within the context of these laws. So, and I appreciate the community input that helped us get there. We've addressed issues of age appropriateness, cultural sensitivity, communication. We've looked at trade books a second time. Homework activities have been nixed. An opt-out form has been developed. I'll show you in a second. We've developed some resources for parents, including our very comprehensive FAQ. We've eliminated several activities which could be interpreted to have gone beyond what the Oregon State standards have identified as the requirement. And we have addressed with our leaders in schools the stigma that is felt by some stakeholders when they opt out. And our principals are there to support you in requesting to opt out of instructional activities. And they're there to work with you collaboratively on alternative activities with no penalty to your student or to your family. So I just want to name that as a concern that we've addressed. This is our website. Let's see, I got lost. This is our website. Many of you have been there. We've had many, many hits on this website. This is our effort to create transparency and to protect against misinformation. I again would direct you toward the FAQ because I think our staff has done a good job at clarifying some of the information that is out there. This website's available in 2 languages. This is the Spanish version. I missed the opportunity to read to you. Part of our transparency in our process has been an area of concern are we doing this correctly? Is this what a district should do if they're following exemplary practice? And I want to read, just for the record, a letter that was sent to us by the Oregon Department of Education when we asked them to review our process. This is addressed to the Board of Directors of the Hillsboro School District. I would like to recognize, this is from Eli Sanders from ODE. I would like to recognize the district staff, parents, and youth have engaged in the hard work of implementing comprehensive sexuality education. I would like to note the particular work that follows. These are 4 bullets. Number 1, the district CSE plan of instruction aligns to OAR 581-022-2050, and this is the quote. Comprehensive plan of instruction, as defined by the Oregon Education Statute, means K-12 programs that emphasize abstinence, but not to the exclusion of condom and contraceptive skills-based education. The human sexuality information provided is complete, balanced, and medically accurate. Opportunities are provided for young people to develop and understand their values, attitudes, beliefs, and decisions around sexuality as a means of helping young people exercise responsibility regarding sexual relationships and sexual health decisions. Bullet 2, District CSE Plan of Instruction alignment with required grade-specific state health standards. That's a check. The 3rd bullet, a selection of curriculum and other instructional materials that ensures a variety of source material that is medically accurate, evidence-based, and inclusive to all students as required by OAR 581-022-2050. And 4th, stakeholder engagement and transparency during the process. They cite our own website, that one, that provides easy access to information, resources, as well as opportunity to comment. Thank you for your work ensuring the wellness of all students. Signed, Eli Sanders, Educational Specialist at ODE. We provided that to the board, but we felt positive that the organization in the state that's responsible for holding us accountable for meeting those standards wrote us that letter in support of our process. Again, this is hard to see, but if you looked at our website and clicked into the lessons by grade level, you can see updates we've made with notes to teachers in yellow highlighter and black bolded connections to standards. We needed to answer the question, where is this lesson coming from? What standard do you anchor back to when you say that this meets the state standards in Oregon? So that's easier to read now. We also went back into our source materials from different providers and highlighted areas where we needed clarification for our staff. Let's see if this works. So these are scripts and ways of delivering lessons that our teachers and counselors requested of us. What exactly am I supposed to say? How exactly do I do this well? And we found a lot of materials that supported us in doing that. We also made X's through things that were not required to say or that could be construed to have overreached in some way or not been aligned to Oregon standards. So between comment boxes and strike-throughs, we feel like we have a product that we can now clean up, translate into Spanish, and publish on our site. Parents should be able to understand exactly what's being said in classrooms, and teachers should be able to have the support of those scripts and those materials. Again, it's the parent's right to sit down with a teacher and ask questions. What exactly are you saying to our students, and how can I support at home? Do I decide to opt out of those instructional activities? This is an example of our opt-out form. We were asked to provide a form on the website so that families would have a template to follow. This is in Spanish and in English to state the student's name, parent, which lesson or lessons would you like to opt out of, and to propose an alternative activity. Again, that is the right of parents to do that and to work with principals on where and how those activities take place, again, with no penalty to the student in terms of their grade. I do want to rebut a couple of things that have been out in the community and stated at board meetings that I think deserve just a minute of attention. The first is that we have been encouraging kids to have sex via our comprehensive sexuality education plan. And quite the contrary is true. The difference between teaching or encouraging students to do a thing and teaching about it is a fundamental part of prevention education. The analogy that I use in my head is that when we teach about drugs and alcohol, we don't teach students to do drugs and alcohol, but we teach them about the dangers and how to stay safe. Same with comprehensive sexuality education. We do so without shaming students. We teach them how to avoid dangers and how to keep themselves safe and be respectful. The second part of prevention education that's important is, why are you teaching 6th graders about scenarios that are popping up in 8th grade? From the prevention education standpoint, in order to address a public health problem, the education that prevents it has to precede it by 2 years. And so when we talk about drugs and alcohol, we teach kids about drugs and alcohol before statistically we know that many students are engaging in experimentation with drugs and alcohol. The same is true in sexual health education, and I think that's an important thing to understand. The second is that by teaching kids to have sex, which is not true, that we are somehow, I believe, the accusation was, I felt, that we are teaching kids to break the law in the state of Oregon. And what I want to clarify, this is a tricky thing, but the Department of Justice has ruled that although Oregon doesn't have what's known as a Romeo and Juliet law, that consensual sex between students from the age of 15 to 18 won't be prosecuted based on age alone. So I think it's important to understand that that's true for our students. We're asked as educators, are we mandatory reporters when we know that students are having sex and they're 16? The answer from the Department of Justice is no. Third, I want to reiterate, if I haven't 5 times already, that we have the right as parents to review materials, to talk to our teachers, to opt out and request alternative activities without penalty to students or families or stigmatization. I just want to recognize that because it's such a fundamental part of the law and part of what we've put together as a district for years. It's not new. Lastly, in Oregon, any action that we would take to marginalize or erase the identities of our LGBTQ classmates, staff members, colleagues, community members would be against the law in terms of identity and protected class in Oregon. I want to name that out loud. We're going to engage now in professional development for our staff, assuming that we can adopt a comprehensive sexuality education plan. We're going to continue to inform our families, staff members, community about what our plan is and make that transparent. Teachers are going to support you, and parents are going to, and district office folks can support if folks have additional concerns that need to be addressed. As we implement this plan, we're going to look for areas to monitor and adjust the plan as we would with any curriculum. Although we're not going to add things, we are going to keep it the same for 1.5 years until we engage in this process again. This is a biennial cycle. And we will prepare a process to reapprove our CSE plan in 2 years when that's required. In recommending that the board approve this plan tonight, we want the board to understand that we met but did not exceed the Oregon state standards in this plan. We want the board to trust our teachers and counselors to act with professionalism and integrity in implementing this plan. This process has given us a chance to see a huge diversity of opinion in our community, and we're going to continue to respect and expect the interaction with parents and support their rights as the parents of children in our community. At this point, I would be happy to answer any questions that the board has after thanking everyone again who contributed to this plan.
I think we're good. I think we want to hear from people.
Thank you very much.
So we are going to move to the next part of our agenda, which is our public comment. But before that, I just want to outline the procedures and make sure that we can get to as many people as possible in an orderly way. Public participation in board meetings is governed by policy BDDH. The board meeting is an open meeting held in public to conduct district business. The board wishes to hear from their community and has scheduled time for public comment. Due to the number of people present and to ensure that the meeting is productive for accomplishing the board's work, the time for public comment will be limited to 120 minutes for this agenda item. And the randomized process will be used to ensure that the board is able to hear a balance of perspectives. Speakers will not be allowed to concede their time for a specified individual or group speaker. If you feel that your point has been made by another speaker, feel free to pass. In the event that you are not selected as one of the speakers this evening, we would still like you to share your thoughts with the board. Please complete a comment card located in the lobby. This will be shared with the board following tonight's meeting. Visitors who wish to speak before the board must complete all sections of the intent to speak card available in the lobby and provided to the Superintendent Secretary, Kathy Wilson. Speakers should state their name and if speaking for an organization, the name of the organization. A spokesperson should be designated to represent a group with a common purpose. 3 minutes will be allowed for an individual speaker. 5 minutes will be allowed for a visitor who is speaking on behalf of a group. Individuals requiring Spanish translation will be given 6 minutes. Speakers who exceed their allowed time will be notified that their time is up. Please abide by these guidelines, as not adhering undermines our ability to hear a variety of perspectives. We will also turn the microphone off after 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but in public session, the board will not hear comments regarding individual district staff member. Board members and district staff will not respond to comments or questions during public testimony. In order to ensure that community members can effectively participate in board meetings for the best interests of the district and its patrons, the board has established expectations for public comment in open meetings. Please review the expectations on the screen at this time. Statements shall be brief and concise. The board chairperson will indicate when time is up. We respectfully ask you that you conclude your comments at that time. In order for the board to adhere varying points of view, please indicate support or opposition for the subject in your intent to speak card and the primary points you wish to make. The board requests that public comment add information or a perspective that has not been mentioned previously, and that patrons refrain from repeating feedback that has already been provided. In order to be respectful and considerate of all participants, please refrain from clapping, cheering, and other audible signs of agreement or disagreement. If the meeting is disrupted, a recess will be called and the board members will suspend the meeting until such a time that they can return to conduct the board's business. If you have additional materials that you would like to share with the board, please give them to our Superintendent Secretary, Kathy Wilson. The board thanks all visitors for their presence and appreciates the input of community members. I also just want to say personally that I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and that I know it takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability to speak in front of an audience. So I just want to thank you ahead of time for all of those that are intending to speak tonight. And I'm going to try to get us in here as quickly as possible. So I'm going to call out 5 names to each side of the microphones. If you can line up as I call your names to those sides, and we'll pause and call another 5 people every time so we can have people already on deck. So we'll start with the first 5 over here: Christy Wilson, Angie Fisher, Hannah Kane, Sarah Bruner, and Reverend Adam Hange. And then we'll have the next 5 over here: Michael Smith, Max Celos Markin, Zendra Runberg, Anna Spross, Rebecca Rufner. Yeah, we'll read them again. On this side, Christy Wilson, Angie Fisher, Hannah Kane, Sarah Bruner, Reverend Adam Hange. On this side, Michael Smith, Max Zelos Markin, Zendra Runberg, Anna Spross, and Rebecca Rufner. And we'll start on this side.
Hello, my name is Christy Wilson, and I am mom of 2 kids in the Hillsboro School District. First and foremost, I would like to take a moment to thank each of you, the Curriculum Advisory Committee, and educators for your authentic engagement through this process. I have reviewed the curriculum by grade level, and I really appreciate the real-time modifications and responsiveness, and most of all, the transparency. In elementary and middle school, I was the kid that sat in the hallway during sex education. I didn't receive information at school or at home. Looking back, I had some traumatic experiences, some which stemmed from unhealthy relationships and other sorts of things. And I feel like if I had received this education, I feel like it could have been different. I have learned that not talking about things is not always the best approach. Additionally, I think the curriculum proposed goes beyond sex education. I think it expands to well-being, self-worth, respecting everyone, and acknowledging that everyone is different, and that's okay. I love that young people will learn about gender roles and bias, and that all families are not the same, and that our kids will learn about healthy relationships. I would like to close by saying that this curriculum may not be perfect, but no curriculum is. In fact, during my first read, there were topics and language that kind of caused me pause, but as reading back, I checked again and those were all revised. I have a lot of respect to the board and district for keeping the review and process so open and inclusive. And as a mom in the school district, I encourage you to pass the comprehensive sexuality education curriculum proposal. Thank you.
Angie Fisher.
Is there any chance that I could go?
I'm sorry?
Is there any chance I could go a little later?
Sure, if you want to go back, that's fine.
Thank you.
My name is Hannah Kane. I'm a senior here at Glencoe. And I first wanted to start by thanking all of you for your transparency and inclusion in the process. It means a lot that as stakeholders across the community, our voices and our opinions are taken seriously. And with that, I'll get into my opinion. So I want all of you to think about the talk that your parents gave you, or that perhaps you give to your children. Did it answer questions that you were too uncomfortable to ask? Did it teach you about consent, or perhaps how to report potential abuse? If the answer is yes, congratulations. You are providing your children and your family with comprehensive sex education. But if your answer is no, the new curriculum aims to fill those holes. It promotes safety, prepares kids for the nuances of today's modern society, and equips them to take ownership of their own boundaries and choices. It does not promote sex, it simply promotes informed decision-making. First of all, the curriculum promotes safety. It teaches kids about safe touch, how to assert and set their own boundaries, and how to identify unhealthy behavior. As a woman, and as a female student in the district, I feel this would have helped me to be safer and avoid unhealthy and abusive relationships I've had in my past, were I to have this education. The new curriculum also prepares students for the nuances of today's world. It provides unbiased education on the spectrum of gender and sexual identities, and as a queer student in the district, this would have helped me come to terms with my own identity much sooner and saved me a lot of trauma and processing that I've gone through. The curriculum also promotes choice. It allows children to decide about their comfort zones and their boundaries with all of the information available. Whether to be abstinent or not, and to what extent, on their own terms. It doesn't promote children having sex, it promotes children being safe. And with that, I would urge you to vote yes. Vote yes to promote safer, better educated young people. Vote yes for the health of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a mom of 4 kids in our school district. My name is Sarah Bruner. And I feel that we can solve this, and it's not through a yes vote or a delay vote. It's clear that the majority of those in the district do not want a yes vote at this time. The HSD Parents Group created a petition less than 4 weeks ago to show the number of those who oppose the majority of this curriculum. And it's not the whole curriculum, it's pieces and parts. And sexual education is important for all of our children. And it's an important part of our community as well to keep them safe. As of 2 hours ago, there were 3,800 signatures to that petition. Many of these signatures are parents with multiple children, so the number of children represented are likely even greater or closer to 4,000 signatures. And although this auditorium is nearly filled tonight, there are hundreds more unable to attend due to prior engagements and commitments. As the district calendar indicates, there are 5 schools within our district with choir concerts tonight. And I personally know many parents who wish that they could be here, but are supporting their children as they should. Parents want to be involved. If a delayed is voted, it will only give us 3 more weeks, which will not solve the core of these issues. Hillsboro School District does not need to be out of compliance indefinitely, and we don't wish to stall it. We do not try to push, we don't want it to be rushed, this proposed curriculum into this year. Filing a Division 22 non-compliance is an entirely legal approach, and is our only option to satisfy the demands of both Oregon law state, the state law, and the needs of our diverse community. What really needs to happen in order for this truly to occur is increased communication between our district teachers and parents to make this a reality and to follow the law. We have an idea of what we can do. A proposed collaboration plan would be one. We need to submit to have a subcommittee of the Community Curriculum Advisory Committee with a broader representation of all those in the district, inclusive of parents. We need to be able to sit at a table like you, with you and others across the spectrum to more quickly reach a solution. 2, focus on the K through 6 first. We don't need to adopt all 13 grade levels at once. Math is adopted in sections as well. With K through 6, identify which pieces of the curriculum that are actually problematic and focus on those. 4, for problematic areas, have the community members representing a cross-section of the district examine alternative publishers. 5, adopt the curriculum that will satisfy the largest number of families while also meeting the standards. This is possible, and I assure you that we can do this and better meet our obligations to the state and to the families in our district. That's why voting no tonight and filing Division 22 non-compliance, an entirely legal approach, is necessary tonight. Thank you for your time.
In order to get to as many speakers, please hold your applause. Our next speakers are Reverend Unhinged, and then we will start with the other 5 of this section.
I'm going to begin by saying thank you to the superintendent and school board, to the curriculum review committee, and the translation team for making tonight possible. I'm here first because my wife and I are parents of a first grader in one of our HSD elementary schools. We have 2 others who will be in the school system very soon. They already have questions that are sometimes hard to answer. I'm also here because I am a local church pastor serving at First Congregational United Church of Christ, and we recently celebrated our 150th anniversary here at the corner of 5th and Main. I think only the Methodists have us beat. We have been a part of this community for a long time. We care about our school district very much. In fact, I'm told one of our Congregationalist forebearers, Horace Lyman, was the first commissioner and Hillsboro school superintendent back in 1851. We are members of this community. Our church is also an LGBT inclusive and affirming church in the downtown of Hillsboro. And I'd like to share how in our church, a similar comprehensive sex education program that was offered for our youth and children has made our church safer from abuse, giving them accurate and age-appropriate language to talk about their bodies, as well as concepts like safe touch and consent. I know as an instructor in that program that for older students, I know it's helped them make better values-based decisions based on what they've learned. And I would share that in our community, the LGBT youth in our church have voiced to me, and some who are youth and children of gay and lesbian parents have voiced to me that they feel safer and more welcome in this community because of this curriculum. And the thought that it might not be passed today makes them feel less safe and less welcome. While I am here to say that I respect the right of every parent and guardian to opt out of this program for religious reasons, my own religious faith calls me to affirm both God-given goodness of human sexuality and the importance of sharing accurate, age-appropriate information about sex and sexuality with our young people. I believe this curriculum accomplishes that well. And I'm also here because I did not grow up in a church that was LGBT inclusive or a school district that was so open-minded as this one. Unfortunately, I grew up in a place where many people that I know experienced the tragedies of not having comprehensive sexuality education. And in those places, I unfortunately saw people who were the victims of sexual abuse, people who experienced unplanned pregnancy, who contracted STDs that were preventable. And I know this kind of curriculum is proven to help protect our children.
Thank you, Reverend.
So I just want to say thank you for this time, and thank you for all of you who are here tonight.
Our next speakers, I'm going to have you lined up on the next 5 on this side. going to be Danny Rosen, Kimberly Scott, Jenny Hall, Carter Morrison, and Nicole Vargas. And we're going to start with the ones that are already on this side. And I just wanted to also say, Angie, if you wanted to also line up over here, if you're ready, that's also fine. Angie Fisher. So our next person is Michael Smith.
My name is Mike Smith. I'm a parent of a preschooler, a 6th grader, and an 8th grader. I thank the board for taking our feedback, and I was glad to see that some of the changes were made showed that the board is listening. Like many here, I didn't think I'd find myself getting involved in a community discussion on the district plan, but after hearing it was causing a stir, I decided to take a look myself. Before looking at any lessons, I brushed up on the Oregon statutes and standards. They're pretty straightforward and make sense. Districts are expected to collaborate with parents and others on a comprehensive sexuality education plan, which includes fundamentals of reproductive health and abuse prevention. It says lessons should be supported by research, age-appropriate, inclusive, and sensitive to differences. Those are my expectations too. As we observed though, the proposed curriculum has content that's raised concern and controversy. Questions about age appropriateness and topics that challenge expectations from parents for what sexual health education should include. Parents have come to expect academic lessons on abuse prevention, reproduction, pregnancy, and reproductive health. But even these topics are almost lost in this curriculum, which for some reason has an over preoccupation with exploring sexuality and relationships, gender roles, sexual orientation, intersectionality, gender identity at really early ages. A lot of that preoccupation stems from the curriculum providers, some of which, like Advocates for Youth, make no pretense of being anything other than advocacy organizations with agendas. All are expected to take up their social causes. Whether we agree or disagree with these causes is actually irrelevant because what they produce is not a sexuality education plan, but a social engineering plan, which is not what we're after. We know there's going to be disagreements on how to build an inclusive but balanced curriculum for these subjects and what to teach at different ages. We've got cultural differences too. That's why the Oregon statute includes one more expectation, that the plan be culturally inclusive. At some point you have to look around at the fact that we're all even here debating this. Isn't it evidence enough that the plan does not pass that test? If the district goes forward, many will opt out. That's actually not what we want. Many parents here support our schools as volunteers in classrooms, booster clubs, and school activities. We all want to send our kids to school. We don't want to have to opt out of the schools we support. There's a lot of good content that we don't want them to miss. Abuse prevention and having respect for differences. It seems that the plan seemed locked and loaded from the data it was presented. Even though the feedback has been loud and with high levels of disapproval, it's still getting pushed. It feels like a conflict of our own making. We were only presented with one choice. Many didn't like it, and many don't think that a few more tweaks will fix it. I suspect we wouldn't be here if we had some options, some that we would readily endorse, like the Great Body Shop used by Lake Oswego, or the lessons Westland developed on their own. We saw yesterday that Battleground chose to take drastic measures because they couldn't come to consensus. The district is required by the plan every 2 years, but while the board has to approve the plan, it doesn't have to approve every new plan. I think this plan may need to go back to the drawing board, and it would be good next time to have more than one choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going to be Max.
My name is Mix Zelazels Marchand. Firstly, I would like to say that I am not socially engineered. I was born this way, and my child was born this way. I would like to say that I'm going to use the word queer as does my family, my friends, and my community as a proud reclaiming of the slur that we grew up enduring during decades when our schools had misleading or altogether missing gender and sexuality education in its curriculum, which led to dangerous assumptions about human quality of life. As a working professional, a parent of a queer 16-year-old, a 1998 graduate of Glencoe High School, a resident in Beaverton, Aloha, and a human being, I'm writing in support of the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Plan of Instruction before the board. I can testify that as a human being who grew up here and who also happens to be Black, trans, and queer, that sexual and gender fluency is always age appropriate. As a family, we have found that the more resources available to prepare ourselves and our kids for who they will encounter and situations they will be navigating is for the better. This includes kids all over in our communities, not just those who we are directly raising. Interpersonal skills are critical to healthy development, feeling supported as a growing human being, and necessary for the physical, mental, and spiritual health of a person. And here I use the word spiritual to imply that deep connection with the self that informs how we relate with those outside of ourselves. To treat everyone with respect, we don't have to know what it's like to be them, but we can never know that. We can know that in our differences, we are still deserving of empathy and respect. Empathy is quintessential to critical thinking. It is the act of, if not being able to imagine how someone or something is affected differently than oneself and one's surrounding, it is then to conceive of these valuable differences. Our parts as parents is to talk to our kids and communities about what these differences mean to us and who we care about at home on a one-on-one level, but we cannot do a thorough job as parents without good resources. And I can tell you that it's incredibly important to have gender and sexuality education in schools, not just for the sake of those who are LGBTQIA+. Advancements in recent years regarding cis women's health have made platforms to easier discussions about health and wellness across the board, and this in turn has led to important analysis and changes regarding equality of the sexes in employment and work-life balance. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act laid out fundamentals to what equality should not just look like, but how it should work. And it has been our culture's continuing analysis and reshaping of how best to support quality of life for each other. In the decades that have followed, especially during the 1990s, multiple cases nationally came with decisions that underlined the prevention of discrimination and harassment from happening in schools and the workplace. There was Burlington Industries versus Elith, Forager versus City of Boca Raton. In closing, I would just like to say, as a graduate of Glencoe from the way back, I am incredibly proud for how far this district has come and for what it has done for kids who could have had it much easier.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Zandra Lundberg, and then Anne as well.
Hi, my name is Zandra. I'm the mother of two in HSD. I had the pleasure of discussing this proposal with a couple of you recently. Thank you so much for your time. Despite the editing that has taken place since our meeting, I'm still gravely concerned about the inclusivity and equity of all the students and teachers of our district. Per the law, human sexuality education must be, quote, culturally inclusive, as Travis discussed earlier. It defines cultural inclusivity as using materials and instruction strategies that respond to culturally diverse individuals, families, and communities in a respectful and effective manner. After looking into it a bit, I found that thousands of people, including myself, claim to be Christians and believe what the Bible says. Christians believe in Christ Jesus, who is the saving grace of the Bible. The Bible says Jesus was with God in the beginning. He created human beings as the grand finale of his entire creation. He created the male and female, and they are a masterpiece. He created marriage, sex, and every good and perfect gift that we know on this earth. It says that God doesn't make mistakes. There are still others who don't belong to any faith group, but simply have ideological and scientific reasons for being concerned about this curriculum. This means that what it teaches, for example, that kids can decide for themselves whether they are a boy or a girl based on their feelings, or that sex can be a healthy part of a 13-year-old's relationship as long as there is consent and it feels good, fundamentally contradicts thousands with this cultural viewpoint. If this many parents are concerned about this CSE, my guess is that most will opt their kids out of classes, as I will. How inclusive will it be when 60, 100, 200 kids are opted out of class, divided from their peers, literally not included? I think we can agree inclusivity means teaching that someone else may have different beliefs, opinions, lifestyles, and is worthy of respect no matter what. I am almost daily confronted with messages, media, and people who directly contradict my convictions as a Christian. Yet I firmly believe that the best way is to listen, respond with kindness, and show them love. It doesn't mean I abandon my faith. It simply means
that other people deserve respect because they are fellow human beings. And isn't this the higher goal we want to teach our kids as they go about their lives? If the board desires to follow the Oregon law and truly be inclusive, you will not vote for any curriculum that so many people believe to be confusing and divisive at best and dangerous at worst. Just like we found common ground at our coffee shop meeting not too long ago, respectful conversation and problem solving is taking place around these very sensitive subjects and can continue to when you vote no on the curriculum. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anna Spross.
Hello, my name is Anna Spross. I went through the Hillsboro School District for the entire 13 years I went to school, graduating from Century High School in 2016. My mother, Jackie Spross, a board member, felt that she did a wonderful job of teaching us sex education. And to no fault of her own, she honestly didn't do a really good job at all. She bought us a book and she read it with us, which is a lot more than some of my peers got, which is really saddening to me. The fact that a simple book was all I got and that was better than what most of my friends got from their parents. She's a wonderful mother, and I'm really proud that you tried, but I was never exposed to anything regarding healthy relationships or consent, anything regarding LGBTQIA+ relationships, or anything outside of puberty and basic contraception. It would have been life-changing to me to have my first experience to any of these sexual education topics to be in a safe classroom setting. As a proud member of the LGBTQIA+ community, I cannot imagine how impactful it would have been to have heard the word lesbian or transgender or gay or non-binary in a safe environment and not as a slur and not as an insult in the hallways. This is not something my parents could provide because it's not something they were taught in school. It's not something they were ever exposed to, and it's not something they thought to provide to us. Providing this education in schools would help so many children feel comfortable in their own skin and accept themselves much sooner. Had I had any teachers that had spoken out about queer relationships in any way at all, especially positive, it would have helped my self-acceptance immediately, and I would have come out much sooner than college. I hope you all vote yes on this curriculum, and I would like to state that I thank you all for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rebecca.
Yep. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the time that you have put into this, all of you, and for the response that you personally, I had sent an email with some of my concerns, and you responded to that as well. Thank you so much. Kudos to all of you for being here. We have a really good representation, I feel like, of different families and people who are living different lives and lifestyles, and here we are all together. And that's what this is about, is coming together. I object to the CSE for a couple of reasons that you've already said. Travis has touched on this before. I feel like it's an over-sexualization of our children. Do I think that there should be a safe place for all kids? Absolutely, there should be. Kids need to learn about safety and health and wellness and their bodies. Yes, definitely. But I think that there's a point where we go beyond that, and even with the revisions, which I commend you for that as well, I still feel like it's an over-sexualization of our kids. And to that, I think that sex ed is incredibly important. I think that we have to touch on those topics and subjects in, again, a safe place, as has been mentioned many times before. However, I think that if we continue to push on our children an over-sexualized educational program, the benefits are not going to be what we think they are. And I think in doing too much, it's not enough. We're not teaching compassion, we're not teaching kindness, we're not teaching acceptance, we're only talking about sex, we're only talking about things that can be altered and changed. And I feel like we need to focus more on other parts of that wellness that come with that sex ed, and that is being kind to people and a genuine goodness of the worth of a human being, regardless of your gender identity or your orientation or what your beliefs are. And I think that element is missing in this curriculum, that we are focusing too much on the sex part of it, even though it's sex ed, I get it, I got it. But I think that we're missing that part, because sex isn't just sex. Sex is also relationship. And part of those relationships, we need to create human beings who feel safe with who they are and feel good about who they are so that they can enjoy that part of life and living as we're trying to teach them to be safe, as they incorporate that emotional side of themselves as well. So I encourage you to vote no and give it more time. I would personally like to volunteer to be a part of the process and encourage you to give it some more time. Incorporate more parents. And that's all I have. Thanks.
And then I'll start with you, but let me have Sylvia Plyston, Lynn Jacobs, Brian Haynes, Dana Willens, Patrick Weiss to line up on this side of the stage, please. And our next speaker is Danny Rosen.
Good evening. My name is Danny Rosen. I live in Uvalde, Oregon. I was a resident of Hillsboro for 25 years, and our daughter graduated from Glencoe High School. Today I'm representing Glisson, Oregon. I'm here today to request that Hillsboro School Board adopts the comprehensive sexuality education plan without exclusion. I'm the current co-chair for the Oregon chapter of Glisson. Glisson works to ensure that LGBTQ students are able to learn and grow in an environment free from bullying and harassment. Our objective is to transform our schools into the safe and affirming environment all youth deserve. Glisson's research and experience have shown that there are 4 major ways that schools can cultivate a safe and supporting environment for all of their students, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. These 4 components are supportive educators, comprehensive policies, support for student-led clubs like gender and sexuality alliances, and inclusive curriculum. Glisson research shows that LGBTQ students who attend schools with a curriculum that is inclusive of LGBTQ people, history, and events experience a better school climate and improved academic outcomes. Curriculum serves as a mirror when it reflects the individuals and their experiences back to themselves. At the same time, curriculum serves as a window when it is introduced and provides an opportunity to understand the experiences and perspectives of those who possess different identities. An inclusive curriculum should be balanced and include diversity windows and mirrors for every student. Having LGBT inclusive mirrors and windows in school curriculum can help create more positive environments and healthy self-awareness for LGBTQ students while raising the awareness of everyone. In the Hillsboro District's message to community regarding sexual health and violence prevention education, the guidelines indicate the curriculum will be reviewed by state health education departments to ensure the curriculum is medically accurate as determined by national and state public health agency and meets the Oregon Department of Education criteria. The opening statement in the district's message states the district is committed to supporting each student's academic and personal growth in safe and inclusive environments. LGBT students in schools with LGBTQ inclusive curriculum are less likely to feel unsafe in school because of their sexual orientation and gender expression. According to the 2017 Oregon Public Teen Survey, about 16% of the students in Washington County identify as something other than straight. Statewide, about 5.2% of 8th graders and 5.9% of 11th graders identify themselves as transgender or non-binary gender non-conforming. I encourage you to not eliminate sex education for the approximately 16% of your students who may not conform to a confined and respected heteronormativity view of sexuality. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kimberly Scott.
Well, I've been here before. I didn't prepare a statement. I didn't know if I'd get a chance to speak. I moved into this district about 8 years ago, and I started noticing a lot of stuff that my 5th grader was being exposed to. And so Travis and I met, and we went through a lot of things. I served on the curriculum committee. I learned a lot there. Right now, I have stage 4 lung cancer, so I have been battling that. I'm here 17 months. They said I had, 15 months. Still here. I have 6 children. I nannied 5 children. My father was a school teacher at Lennox his whole life. I have served in the classroom for 29 years. I am an advocate for children. I feel like there's a lot of parents that have put a lot of stuff together, have read every single detail, have read all the curriculum and all of the changes, and have kept up with this, and I haven't been able to. But what I can say disturbs me the most is what's being done to elementary ages. I thought there was some great suggestion about starting with the K through 6th grade and coming up with something better. This is not what the parents want. This is a violation of trust. This is you're stripping away the innocence of little children. I mean, I am around little children all the time. They're afraid of, you've seen them with no shirt on. Their modesty is important to them. When we're exposed to telling them a lot of the stuff that I've seen. I have a friend from Russia who lives next door. She wanted to be here tonight. They moved here from California. This was happening in California. They pulled their kids. It's too traumatizing for the children in the classrooms. I worked for 4 doctors when I nannied. They're from India, and they won't send their kids to our schools. So I don't know, because of their cultural problems and because of the emphasis on things that we shouldn't be spending all this time, resources, and money when there's so much we could do to help our education. I'm urging you to vote no. Our school board is volunteers. They're supposed to be the thin line. You're not paid. Us parents aren't paid. Our kids, we send them to the schools. We trust you. We put their innocent minds and lives in your hands. And the school board's supposed to stand up for the parents, the children, and the community. I understand we've got unions, we've got administration, we've got every other organization from the state down that are being paid. I don't know why this is so much time, resources, and money has been spent on this, but I am looking to the school board to look at the parents, look at the petitions, look at the suggestions, look at the volunteers, this groundswell of volunteers. And a lot of these parents I know run all these fundraisers, exhausting. So please vote no and continue working. We need the school board to stand up for the parents and the community.
Jenny Hall.
I thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. Everyone's kind of said that, and a lot of points have been hit, but I couldn't pass up an opportunity as a parent of a transgender son. So I moved here a year ago from Utah in hopes of helping our transgender son after 2 suicide attempts in Utah. The culture there was very hush-hush in conversations about these things. And, in talking about sex ed, just interestingly, one of the comments that he remarked to us as soon as he started school here, he's not in Hillsboro School District, he's in Portland Public Schools, but one of his first texts to me was, oh my gosh, in health class they taught us about trans. Like, they used that word, I am a person. That translated to him that he was a person. He existed in society, he existed in this world. I can't replace, there's nothing that really I can tie to that as being more valuable and more confirming as to why we left the situation that we were in seeing him start to build confidence in his identity and who he was as a person and being valued. I mean, going back, this is a son who, at 4 years old, stopped wearing pink and started cutting off his shirts at that time and was having the bathroom issues at the elementary school level. And I think, interestingly, we talk about gender and should we be talking about it. I've seen some of the pamphlets come out, and my first remark is, well, gender is what has created some of this issue anyway to begin with. If we didn't talk about gender, we wouldn't have people wondering about their gender identity to begin with. It would just be a part of normal society, but we do a really good job of creating pathways for them to have to choose what their gender is. And so part of that comes from that. We talk about being inclusive, and I just keep thinking, the more experiences my son has had of feeling human, the more included he feels. And so I think by continuing to leave it out, we are continuing to not include him, to exclude him as a person and as a human. And I don't know, I mean, we're this is kind of a cool time and opportunity to be here because all civil rights movements start with the majority opposing something that is good for the minority. So I say that
Please hold your applause. Carter Morrison.
This auditorium is filled with people who have come here tonight because they're concerned about this issue. They're taxpayers who fund this school district. They're the ones who pass the bonds that benefit the school within it, the schools within it. They're the people who voted you all in. They're the parents and community members who care deeply about our kids. And for every person here, there are many more like them who, because they care about their kids, they can't be here tonight. They're at karate or soccer practice, Halloween parties, school-sponsored events, or simply at home just making sure their kids are in bed on time. From the amount of people here and the interest this curriculum has generated, I hope that it's crystal clear that our community is concerned about the sex education curriculum the school district has proposed. This isn't as simple as math or social studies curriculum. This topic is so intrinsically connected with our individual values and beliefs that we are turning out in record numbers to show our concern. I know from watching the board in action at the last meeting that you too care about our kids. I watched really thoughtful questioning by members of this board that got to the heart of the issues. We can all agree that you and us have the best interests of our kids in mind. Because we all care so much about our children, I am asking you to vote no on this curriculum to give us time. Time as a community to sit down with the district in open sessions of discussion. Time where we can go literally line by line, lesson by lesson, and develop a plan that meets the ODE standards and better reflects the value systems of our community. So where do we get that time? The district says that we have to pass this tonight or risk being out of compliance. While that is technically true, we have a legal loophole, so to speak. It was brought up at the last board meeting, and I did a little digging and discovered that this loophole will buy us the time that we need to evaluate and ensure that we have the best curriculum in place for our community. It offers a solution to the parental concerns brought forward and an opportunity to follow the law and serve our school district completely. Here's our solution. Oregon law requires each school district to file a report on our compliance with the ODE standards. We have to report on our compliance with our curriculum, and I did a little more digging and discovered that it's not uncommon for school districts to be out of compliance with their curriculum for various reasons, with little to no repercussions. I also found out that this report isn't due until February of 2021. We have 16 months to get this right. 16 months where parents with a vested interest in each year of curriculum can attend and should attend a work session and have real input in what their specific children will be learning. Our kids are too important to us, to the board, and to our whole community to not use that time to get this right. Please vote no tonight. Let's use the option of filing Division 22 and give this time to our kids. They deserve it.
Nicole Vargas.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Vargas, and I am the Legislative Assistant to State Representative Janine Solomon. Janine is a former Hillsboro School Board member, and she regrets that she could not be here tonight. I am reading this on her behalf. No matter what side of the issue you are on, we all want what we think is best for students. As parents, caregivers, community members, school board members, and staff, we love our kids. I recently attended an open house in the district office and looked over the curriculum, had conversations, and listened. The room was filled with others doing the same. There was respectful dialogue. Dialogue is critical in this process. There is nothing in this proposed curriculum that devalues the importance of conversation between a student and a parent or guardian. In fact, it is just the opposite. Parents are still within their right to have their students opt out of the lessons. That is their prerogative. As a school district, however, Hillsboro cannot simply ignore the standards that they must meet. As a state representative, I look at this issue from a wider state lens. Comprehensive sexuality education among K-12 children has been called a promising approach to prevent known risk factors for sexual violence, in part because risk factors begin to develop early in life, and several risk factors for sexual violence may be addressed by CSE. CSE also promotes development of social-emotional skills that can help increase academic achievement, reduce risk-taking, and lead to healthy relationships, and covers topics such as bullying, teen dating violence, and positive youth development. We have seen the data county by county, and it cannot be ignored. Evidence-based instruction not only informs as a means of prevention, but informs as a means of protection for those that are placed in harm's way and are vulnerable and need the tools to seek help. All students benefit by feeling safe, included, and having a sense of belonging. I will stand up for every day for those students. Students whose families may look different, students who seek understanding as they may not feel as though they fit in the same box as others, students that are feeling unsafe in their world due to unsafe relationships, students that seek acceptance. Let's work together to form a conversation between a student and to form a stronger community, one that works together to protect our kids, stays engaged in the discussions that are happening, and offers acceptance versus denial. I commend the school district for the open process and time given to parents to look over and question the material. I sincerely appreciate the school board members for their engaged leadership. I fully support the implementation of this curriculum. I urge the school board to approve and move this work forward tonight and continue the conversations. We cannot ignore the need that is out there. We cannot ignore the facts. Our students and their healthy futures are depending on it. Thank you. And can I just add, I myself am a mother to 3 children in the Hillsboro School District, and I also support this curriculum. Thank you.
I just want to repeat the order so that you know. Sylvia Plastig, Lynn Jacobs, Brian Haynes, Dana Williams, Patrick Wise. We're going to have you over here. And then I'll call up the next 5 also to start lining up. Jasmine Barlow, Chantel Williamson, Shannon Walton Clark, Erin Curtis, and Erica Gorham. So we'll start with Sylvia.
Hi, I'm a parent in the Hillsboro School District of 5 children. I'm here because I'm not only concerned about much of the content of this curriculum, but also the lack of a seat at the table, so to speak, from the community in putting this curriculum together. 7 people on a CCAC meeting voting on this curriculum from what was supposed to be at least 14 seats is not representative of community support. And pushing this curriculum through without at the very least making sure that every seat at that table was filled before taking that vote is irresponsible. Now I'll just speak to one of many lessons that concern me in this curriculum, which I read through twice at the open house. In the high school binder, under the porn sex versus real sex lesson, it describes in graphic detail the various kinds of porn out there and what occurs. In that same lesson, teens are taught the name of a website where millions of users can share and access free legal porn. I have gone through the OD standards and nowhere do I see that we need to name the name of a porn website where underage users can easily access porn. After several pages of talking of the normalcy of porn and how to use it properly, we do finally reach a segment where the lesson teaches that scientists have shown that the brain can be affected by the use of porn, and then does share a story in about 3 paragraphs of a celebrity who shares his story of porn addiction. But the lesson concludes his story by saying, most people don't become addicted to porn. So in that concluding sentence, you just discounted and erased that entire man's experience. In schools, we don't approach teaching any other potentially addicting substance this way. Where is the balance in this lesson? Where is the science? The focus on this lesson is not on the science, but what is perceived as culturally and societally acceptable. There's far too much in this curriculum of these lessons which lack balance and context, and we are doing our kids such a disservice by not telling them the full story so that they can make an informed decision. Colt Gill, director of ODE, whose mandates have been pointed to time and time again by HSD, also said that one of his mandates were parental collaboration and community involvement. If you're going to point to his mandates, you can't cherry pick.
I know that the meetings concerning this curriculum before September were sparse, mainly because we didn't know about them. How you would think that you're able to curate feedback on 13 years worth of curriculum now that the community is aware in less than 2 months is beyond me. You've asked for feedback. Well, look around. Here it is. When was the last time the board felt the need to move a school board meeting to an auditorium? We vote the school board in. You are supposed to be the voice of this community, not any outside special interest group and not just one group. The checks and balances, you are the checks and balances so that the entire community has a voice in the education of its children.
Thank you.
I sincerely hope that the vote by the board tonight does not come down to whether you personally agree with the curriculum.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and speak to all of you. Thank you. And speak to the community as a family physician here in the community for the past 21 years, seeing many children and having 3 of my own children come through the Hillsboro School District. I haven't been more proud of our school board than I am tonight. I really have to say that this approach, including the community, having discussion, having thoughtful curriculum that is created to be inclusive and speak to our values as people here in the community, making sure that there's special attention given to those marginalized communities or members of our community is supremely important. I deal with children on a daily basis who struggle with depression, struggle with their own sexual identity, struggle with bullying, and I feel like, as Jackie's daughter mentioned, we do a lot in our homes. I can do a very little bit in the office, and in school, they're given the opportunity to be in a safe space and hear from their peers, hear from their teachers that they're accepted. This is an important curriculum, it's very valuable, and I support you passing this curriculum. Thank you.
My name is Brian Haynes, and I'd first like to thank you all for your time here. I can't imagine how difficult it must be to go through all the problems of preparing and putting together and spending months drafting the material that you have, then to find it is of such contention. However, I would like to remind you and have you look around for a moment and consider the fact that this is a very contentious material. And that one of the things you might consider is that as members of the board representing the community, that the community is speaking. And the community is saying we're not in agreement on this material. We've heard many views from different perspectives here tonight. And perhaps the one thing we can all agree is we don't agree. That we don't all see this as the way to move forward. You've been presented 2 statements this evening that don't actually represent the facts. First of all, it's been presented that you have no choice but to accept this material. That simply is not the case. You have been advised there are other alternatives, and I would not want you to make this decision believing that you have no choice but to select this material. Secondly, you've been told that this material conforms to the state's requirements for inclusive material. However, I would suggest to you that you have before you a prima facie evidence that in fact it does not. That thousands of your constituents, thousands of the people in your district are telling you that this excludes them, that this excludes me and my views, that the material you have before you, by direct evidence of our being here tonight, does not represent us. And in fact, does not then conform to the state's requirement that it be all-inclusive. I thank you very much for your time tonight, and I realize that in asking you for a no vote, it means there'll be more work ahead. It means that there might be longer time spent on this. And yet, we understand and appreciate that you don't respond to this state, but you work for us and with us. And we're grateful for that, and we hope that you will listen to us. Thank you very much.
My name is Dana Wilms, and I'm a parent of 2 amazing kids and at the wonderfully diverse Mitchell Bridge Elementary, where I'm the PTA co-president, and I put in hundreds of volunteer hours there over the last 5 years. Thank you, board members, for this opportunity to comment on this important and crucial comprehensive sexual education and sexual violence prevention curriculum. I want to say to the creators of this curriculum, thank you. Thank you for listening to experts. Thank you for listening to the prosecutors who put abusers behind bars, who told you that giving children from day one the correct language for describing their bodies is a simple yet vital tool to protect themselves from predators. Thank you for listening to the counselors and social workers who told you how they must pick up the pieces of abused children who never understood what was happening or how to tell someone because they weren't taught how. Who told you that most abuse is done by someone the child knows, so being taught what is okay and not okay with their bodies, how to say no and how to seek help can save them from terror and pain. Thank you for listening to the social scientists who told you that premarital sex, sexually transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancy, and abortion all go down when a CSE program is in place. Thank you for listening to the psychologists who told you that simply teaching children to accept those who are different from them leads to less bullying, less hatred, and fewer suicides. Thank you for remembering that Hillsboro is made up of a diverse population of many faiths, languages, and beliefs, and that no single person or group's beliefs can overpower the benefit that all share when our children are protected by real knowledge, real data, and real information. And thank you for providing those who would avoid listening to the experts the choice to opt out without taking away the opportunity for those of us who do want to listen. I encourage the board to vote yes to implement this curriculum. It is important that Hillsboro School District students have the opportunity to learn everything a comprehensive, science-based, and inclusive sexual education can provide. Thank you.
Our next speaker, and then I'll just repeat the order for the 5 over here, and then I'll mention the other 5 speakers. We have Patrick Wise, Jasmine Barlow, Chantel Williamson, Shannon Walton-Clark, Aaron Curtis, Erica Orlin, and then on this side, if we can start lining up, Kristen Henry, Sally Blackwood, Suzanne Gallagher, Clay Andrew, and Joe Everton. Patrick Weiss, go.
Thank you guys for all you are doing for the school district, and I appreciate all you're going through. I'm also a parent here, and hopefully we'll have grandchildren coming in here. My concern is that maybe we are stepping in a little bit too soon for our young children. I would hate to see us trying to avoid sexual harassment and troubles by exposing these young innocent minds to what would be considered sexual abuse. I'm also hearing a lot of parents out here with similar concerns. I think that we need to spend a little more time making sure that it is age appropriate for the culture that you're dealing with here. And there are quite a few parents who do not believe that this age appropriateness that some people think is correct for their children. And if you want to have people participating in this sexual education, you need to have the people feel that it is appropriate for their children. I just think that if we took a little more time and got a little more involvement from the parents, that would be more unanimously accepted in this area. At this time, I would wish that you would vote no and reconsider what we have going in our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine Barlow.
Hello, I have a 5th grader at Butternut Creek Elementary, and when I came to the first open house, I was actually really excited to see all the material that was presented, but then disheartened by a lot of the comments on the yellow cards. So I'm really happy to hear what everybody's saying and what has already been said. very eloquently, especially by some of the youngest commenters tonight. So I kind of want to go back and talk about something one of the other commenters said, that the curriculum is over-sexualizing the children. And I find this a somewhat bizarre claim, especially with the point that, I've forgotten the name, but someone said that kids need to be exposed to material 2 years before they need to be able to synthesize it for use. So everything put together, you have to be able to prepare the children for avoiding becoming victims of CSA earlier than they're exposed to the threat. You have to avoid children drawing in on themselves and not being able to be themselves before they have the chance to realize that. If we had had this curriculum 30 years ago, my sister probably would not have been a CSA victim. If we'd had this curriculum 30 years ago, I probably would have been able to transition and have a happier, more fulfilling life earlier. So, two things before I step away. I'm really enheartened by all the support that I am hearing for the LGBTQA community. I'm multiple letters on that list. And I also just want to make sure that we push forward with everything that's on the curriculum. Thank you.
I want to review the timeline of what has happened in hopes I can broaden your view why some people might not feel this timeline has included the community, not given us enough time to feel our concerns have been met. I respect Travis's timeline, but this is, as a parent, this is what I've seen. May 16th, teacher open house forum where only 2 teachers were attended, although it was a teacher representative group. Then the CCAC approved a plan, not the present plan. They were given a short time to review the materials, 4 organizations and 3 speakers presented, all with one perspective. Note, sometime after that meeting, the 3 Rs and many other curriculum additions were added without being brought back to the CCAC for any approval. There was also a health teacher alignment meeting for middle school teachers where I was told the binder was passed around during the meeting for them to look at it. At the same time, verbal instruction was being given. June 4th, open house in a small venue with overflow of nearly 100 people. A slideshow presenting a different curriculum and no questions were allowed. Comment cards with email addresses were requested, but note, several of my friends said they never got answers back to their questions. This was a missed opportunity, I think, by refusing to answer questions to a huge group of interested people. In the summer, private meetings were with a few people in the community where feedback was appreciated, but no changes were taken. September 15th, a 3-day teacher training meeting scheduled for editing with unknown number of teachers involved and unsure how many grades were actually represented. This was done in a few days before being presented to the board. June 24th, proposed curriculum went live on the website with community access the same day it was being proposed to the school board. 15 speakers presented with concerns, 0 spoke in favor, with more than 100 people present. Speakers were given 2 minutes to speak instead of the usual promised 3 minutes. October 1st, the first open house for an hour and a half with over 400 people present to view and leave sticky notes on their objectionable material. I really feel this was respectful to the community because they were able to view the material, ask questions, and also see the board with open questions, and I loved it. There was, however, difficulties viewing copyrighted material in a binder where only one person was able to access the binder. October 16th, a second open house for viewing of materials with noticeable revisions seen, which thank you so much for that. But still some objectionable discrepancies with little changes made to middle school and high school. I'm a mother of 5 children, okay? I also read every single word from kindergarten to 6th. I don't know how many have actually read the curriculum personally, but I should be a professional in saying that I know by heart that this is not age appropriate for any of my 5 kids, so you're all under the age of 10. I also want to say, Travis, I really appreciate every work he's done. He's put forth a lot of effort. I did recognize at last month's board meeting, he did say that there was a noticeable absence of parent feedback. This lack of parental involvement appears to look like an afterthought. Insufficient time was given for the community input following the extensive revisions made throughout the summer. I know I have brought up other communities several times in letters to you, but I respect their positive approach regarding parent and teacher feedback. They took a year. Other districts took 1 year to get through. We take 4 weeks. I vote no. With no more time and input, we will do this right for the children. They deserve this.
Before I start, a point of clarification, I'm here representing an organization, and it was my understanding that I was going to be given 5 minutes, not 3. Just want to clarify that before I start.
Yes, that's correct.
5?
Right.
Awesome. Dear esteemed board members, my name is Shannon Walton Clark, and I'm the board chair of the Westside Career Resource Center. I'm speaking tonight in support of this curriculum on behalf of this organization and the board, which includes HSD parents and educators. Thank you for giving me the opportunity for sharing our reasons for supporting this important and critical curriculum. The mission of the Westside Career Resource Center is to foster a welcoming, supportive, and safe environment for the LGBTQAI+ community, their families, and allies by providing programs, education, advocacy, and resources. And we see the Hillsboro School District as a key collaborator in building and fostering an inclusive community. According to the 2017 Oregon Healthy Teen Survey, 16% of Washington County 8th graders and 15.9% of Washington County 11th graders identified as not straight. Clearly, the LGBTQ+ community is interwoven into the very fabric of this community. We live here, we work here, we go to school here, and our presence in this community cannot and should not be ignored or diminished. The health and safety of our community needs to be taken into consideration at all levels, including this curriculum adoption. Several studies indicate that LGBT youth are 1.5 to 7 times more likely to report attempting suicide. In Oregon alone, 46% of lesbian and gay 8th graders reported attempting suicide in a 12-month period of time. This and other reports conclude that a safe school environment devoid of bullying, coupled with parent and peer acceptance and support are significant protective factors for the LGBTQ+ community. The data concerning the presence of the LGBTQ+ people in this community is irrefutable. The data concerning the risk factors and suicide rates within the LGBT community is scientifically proven by not only the Center for Disease Control, but by our own Oregon Health Authority. Our children are hurting and they need help. Some might consider this information not relevant to the issue at hand, but to us and to so many others, the health and well-being of LGBT youth is connected to this curriculum. We know when students are being taught to respect other identities and expressions, school becomes a safer and more protected environment. When students see themselves reflected in curriculum regardless of race, country of origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, immigration status, and other important identity factors, their peers become the connector over the divides between communities and they feel heard. This curriculum offers our children the opportunity to be the bridges across our beautifully diverse district. We've heard a lot of passionate people speak tonight, primarily parents. We've heard a lot about parental rights, respecting ideology and religious beliefs. And while some of this ideology would seek to deny our existence or the safety of our children within classrooms, we respect the right of those individuals to worship and raise their children according to their beliefs. However, we are fighting for the lives of our children. We are fighting for their right to be safe and respected within the classroom, and I would hope that regardless of our ideological and theological differences, that we could all agree that all children deserve to be respected and safe within the classroom. This past year, Washington County passed its first Pride Proclamation. The city of Hillsboro hosted its first Pride Party and over 5,000 people attended. These were groundbreaking and amazing moments within our community. This curriculum offers a chance for our children to feel loved and accepted beyond the month of June. I would hate for us to shy away from this message and relegate our acceptance and love of our children to just one day or just 1 month. Don't all children deserve that right? Thank you for your time. I hope we can all be courageous in our actions tonight. not just for your children, but for all of our children. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Erin Curtis. I am the mother of 4 children, grades 7, 6, 2, and kindergarten. The proposed curriculum includes lessons that would teach my children that gender is fluid and that there are an infinite number of genders that can change even from day to day, or that someone they know could have been possibly born into the wrong body. The wrong body. With all the heartache today that our children face regarding body image, this is one more reason for them to question themselves and to stay in their bodies, because according to these lessons, they may have been born into the wrong one. This is in direct opposition to my religious beliefs, and I don't believe it has any place in the classroom in a public school. No one's body is wrong. Our bodies are our greatest gift and our greatest asset. But you say we have to teach the state standards, and including gender issues, and our hands are tied. How about teaching multiple issues on gender? How about teaching that some people view gender as male and female, strictly aligned with biological sex, and that some believe that gender exists on a spectrum? This is the first example that I have seen in our community tonight of us engaging in a real-time conversation, and I hope that that can also extend to our classrooms. We spend too much time divided on Facebook and social media, and even separating ourselves in different sections of the room. I hope for our students' sake that we can set a better example to speak to all notions regarding gender. One thing I will never agree to is for one viewpoint only to be taught in a classroom. The proposed lessons do just this. They promote that gender fluidity as fact, and they call out as false the traditionally held notion that gender is male and female. This is not inclusive of all beliefs in our community. Just look at this room. We have so many people that are passionate about different viewpoints. It deserves to be discussed in the classroom as well, and not just one viewpoint. It is not bigotry to acknowledge that biological differences exist between men and women. However, it is ignorant and irresponsible and unconscionable to use the classroom to promote a single ideology, including gender ideology. Do not put your name to this. Vote no and find your Division 22 forms.
Thank you. Good evening, my name is Erica Gerling. I'm so happy to be here. A long evening for everyone I know. Thank you to the board for listening so well and intently. Thank you, Travis, for your introduction and what has been done so far. There's clearly been so much vested interest, as there still is. I'm a mother of 2 amazing daughters here in the Hillsboro School District. I also have my PhD in media psychology, and I teach human sexuality at a local college. These issues around sexuality don't have to equal the sexualization of young children. And indeed, this is a very adult lens to put on our bodies. This is unfortunately problematic. So when we tell our children that your body is sexual at a young age, that often occurs in secrecy. But when we give them the scientific and medically accurate tools to understand the parts of their body, this is what they are, that gives language and empowerment. And just like CARES Northwest and Sexual Assault Resource Center and the many resources they've pulled from show us, as well as national research from the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the younger we have exposure to medically accurate information, the more of a context in which children can be safe. They can disclose abuse, and this is imperative to childhood safety. On the issue of gender, the reality is there's a lot of concern, and I understand that concern. However, the notion that gender is simply a feeling, that is not what the curriculum says as I read it. Gender is the lived experience. Just as many of you feel settled in who you are, that is the same case for a trans kid whose biological sex does not match the experience of what their lived life is. That distress is significant, and the earlier we name that, the more we protect our kids. The earlier we
we name that, the more we give language for other kids to be able to respond kindly and compassionately to that lived experience differently. As a parent, it is a beautiful opportunity to say, yeah, in our family, we don't quite understand that, but we still love that person. That is absolutely your right, and there is no shift to that important faith-based practice that families have. It is simply empowering our children to have deeper language and understanding of what's going on in their bodies. I applaud the board's efforts. I encourage you to vote yes tonight and to move this forward. It can save lives. I sat today with a trans youth who experienced significant levels of dysphoria, who never had opportunities to name their experience, who spent months in a residential facility for eating disorders and suicidal ideation. He is one of many. Every day, 15% of my student population, kids who graduated from Hillsboro, are having this experience in part because they didn't get to name and have normalized their lived experience. Please do not take that away from such huge parts of our student population. Thank you very, very much.
The orders again so that you know is going to be Christine Henry, Sally Blackwood, Suzanne Gallagher, Clay Andrew, and Joe Everton on this side. And the next 5 speakers after that to start lining up on this side of the auditorium is going to be Michael Turk, Jolyn F., Zach Hammer, Suzanne Coleman, and Patrick McGuire. We'll go ahead and start with Kristen Henry.
My name is Kristen, and I'm a parent in the Hillsboro School District. At this critical juncture in the process, I imagine it may be tempting to contend that the district has made significant changes to the curriculum based on feedback. After all, for those people who were concerned about the curriculum in the first place, mustn't these changes naturally signal improvement? I do agree there have been improvements. However, the sum of these changes did not allay the concerns of many citizens. At the end of the day, it makes very little difference at what point we started. It only matters where we end. What matters right now is every element of developmentally inappropriate curriculum that remains. School board members, I implore you to vote no tonight. It is time to go back to the drawing board and give this curriculum review process the time and attention it deserves. It's time to create a task force representing the broad spectrum of stakeholders in our community. There is a path to creating a balanced curriculum that not only reflects but respects the breadth of viewpoints held by our community members. Along this path, it is imperative to conduct a bilateral analysis that thoroughly evaluates both the benefits and drawbacks in order to reach an effective solution. For example, the district has stated that a primary goal of implementing this curriculum is to keep our students safe. In that regard, it would be critical to uncover and address studies such as the April 2019 report from the Institute for Research and Evaluation, which states, and I quote, 3 decades of research indicate that the school-based comprehensive sex education has not been an effective public health strategy. It has produced only a few sustained effects on protective outcomes without other negative impacts. In fact, it has shown far more evidence of failure than success and caused a concerning number of harmful effects, end quote. The report goes on to discuss CSE failure rate based on 103 separate studies. Quote, school-based CSE programs that attempted to show effectiveness by producing sustained 12-month effects on a key protective outcome for the intended population failed 87% of the time. In closing, I leave you with this quote from the national publication, the City Journal. No compulsory public school system can be justified unless what it teaches is a worldview that the taxpayers who fund it can support. For schools to try to indoctrinate children in a radical minority worldview, a vision that will form those children's values and shape their sense of selfhood, is a kind of tyranny. We must not let an appeal to our belief in tolerance and decency blind us to indecency and to the individual and social damage that will result from it. School board members, your constituents, and your taxpayers have spoken. Please listen. Thank you.
Sally Blackwood.
Hi, I'm Sally Blackwood, and I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, because all of you are here because you really care about your kids. So can't tell you how much it means to me. You're all here. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Oregon. I started working with kids who experienced trauma in fall of 1990 in a residential treatment facility, and I worked in community mental health. Currently, I work for CARES Northwest, and I'm here representing CARES Northwest. The district plan has in it our violence prevention curriculum, which is building foundations for healthy relationships. So when I heard things about healthy relationships tonight, on all sides, and when I heard about empathy, I was happy, because I think those are the cornerstones of the classes. And I have to say, I was not prepared as much as you all are about tonight. I don't go to very many board meetings. But what I want to offer is some information about violence prevention. According to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, the average age that a child will be sexually abused is 9.7 for boys and 9.9 for girls. So what that tells us is that young kids get sexually abused, and that's connected to some of the things that have been mentioned tonight. If they could tell earlier, because the research says I've seen the numbers anywhere from 10 to 18% of people do not tell about experienced child sexual abuse before they turn 18. So one way to think about prevention is helping people tell. They tell, it stops. Particularly with this kind of abuse, when the secret comes out, that's when it stops. That's the only time anyone can get help. And so any prevention thing that's been done in the schools around child sex abuse increases disclosure rates. They're alone. You're doing some prevention. I also want to say that our prevention curriculum is based on prevention theory and strategy. There's quite a field of study, and I'm kind of a geek that way about prevention, about research. I always have been. So ours is really a public health model in a lot of ways. So you are looking at increasing those protective factors, decreasing the risk factors. You're also looking at comprehensive prevention, which says basically if you're going to prevent violence, particularly violence against women and children, you got to look at what do you do at the individual level? What do you do at that relationship level? That means peers, families, community, everybody that kids in contact with. What do you do at a community level, larger, and what do you do at a societal level? And so one of the benefits of talking about child sex abuse and child sex abuse prevention in the schools is that you are working on multiple levels at once. And I guess that's it. So thank you for letting me talk tonight. It was nice to be here, and I again appreciate the time. Thanks.
Suzanne Gallagher.
Thank you. I'm Suzanne Gallagher, and I represent Parents' Rights in Education, a national organization committed to protecting the rights of parents in public schools. My message is simple. School board, listen to the parents. You work for them. And remember, I love that reference to February 2021. Don't rush into this. You know, all this talk about the efficacy of the proposed curriculum is merely a negotiating exercise, because the parents asked for, in Battleground, Washington last night, what they really want is no CSE K through 4, human development in grade 5, and information about STDs in middle school, and perhaps opt-in sex ed in high school. Their board heard them. In summary now, no sex education shall be offered as part of health. Basic health remains a core graduation requirement. Remember, all this information that you are presenting is available on the internet, in excess. Now, you will no doubt assert that there is nothing that you can do. However, you are wrong. School boards represent families in their district and maintain local control. Local control. In fact, as they did in Eagle Point, Oregon, you can change policy. You can revise it or remove it. You have local control. You do not have to accept the ODE's curriculum recommendations, and you do not have to accept the health standards not all of them. If you already have done so, you can even change that. The idea that school staff can suggest to a minor child without parent knowledge or consent or permission that their son or daughter should consider changing his or her sex is frightening. Most parents in this room would be appalled what is going on out there. This is a national issue. I run an organization defending parents' rights in education, and I hear from parents in states from Iowa, Virginia, Georgia, Mississippi, Massachusetts, Montana, Arizona, Texas, Washington, Oregon, to Rancho Cucamonga, California. Like the Iowa mother whose daughter decided to transition on her 18th birthday, senior year, announced to her daughter in the counselor's office. That was very, very sad discussion, telephone discussion I had with her. Her daughter was a cheerleader. She was a vibrant student. And within, I believe I have 5 minutes, within a very short period of time, she disowned her family. The 12th and 5th grade boy, sexually abused by a male classmate in the school restroom. He was diagnosed with bowel incontinence and an STD. He was 11. And his schoolmate was also 11. The school took no responsibility, claiming there was consent of two 12-year-olds. Middle school student harassed and bullied by a trans boy in Westland, Wilsonville, until he could not take it anymore. He told this other child, he said, "Please, respect me. I don't want this. Stop winking at me." The other child went crying to the office, and unfortunately the straight student was discriminated against and had to leave the district because he was not safe. It works both ways. Parents of 3rd grade students in West Lynn were appalled that their children had attended a coming out party held in the principal's office for a boy transitioning to a girl. If he continues with so-called treatment, he will never experience what it means to be a mature male. Sex he was born with. These subjects are controversial.
Stop. All of this is misinformation and lies. Bigotry. You're lying.
I believe they do not have the full story because I hear from these parents of these kids, there are more and more transgender individuals who are discovering in their 20s that if they had just had an opportunity to think a little bit longer about it. Listen, I've had my breast removed. They are interrupting.
Please refrain. Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker.
I am not finished.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Our next speaker is Clayton Andrew. Your time is done. Thank you very much.
Someone else's time is now.
Please cut the mic.
Or do the right thing and honor the parents in your
I'm going to have the next speaker please stand behind Clayton
what
Andrew.
happens here tonight.
You can come forward. Thank you very much.
No, we just aren't.
Clay Andrew.
No more dirty looks over here. You don't be.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Clay Andrew. I'm the pastor of the Hillsboro United Methodist Church. My community, my church that I serve, has been a part of this community for 175 years, quite literally, from the beginning of this community. And my wife and I are the proud parents of a first grader at Newberry Elementary. I am excited about this curriculum, and I am pleased to hear that you are, I hope, going to adopt it. Because as contentious as it might be, as much as we might disagree about some of the values that we all hold dear, what we know is that this kind of curriculum, this kind of education for our children makes for healthier, better communities and children. We know that this kind of education keeps children safer. We know that this kind of education saves lives. That's what we're talking about. My dad, when I was growing up back in Texas, my dad was on the school board for almost all the years that I was in school. So I know at least a little bit of what it's like. Those phone calls and emails and letters from the community and how often you get pulled aside, I imagine, in public by someone who wants to share a question or a concern. I know how late often you are up, not just at meetings, but reading and considering carefully the decisions that you make. And I know how seriously you take the sacred trust that this community has put in your hands to educate and shape our children, to lead the work of our school district and working with our educators and administrators. And I know how seriously you take the sacred trust of keeping our children safe. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your sometimes difficult work. And thank you for your work to adopt this curriculum that will, in fact, make for healthier children, a healthier community, and that will save lives.
Last time I heard I didn't speak in the mic very well. I'll try better this time. So I'm Joe Everton. I'm a parent of 2 students in this district. I live here in this district. I just want to say it's been interesting hearing so many different viewpoints tonight, and I appreciate it. I have not heard anybody here speak who I don't think I could find common ground with. I really appreciate it. Tonight I wanted to speak about parental involvement in the plan and collaboration. I want to start with the famous Gill quote. I'm going to paraphrase some of it here. This plan should be developed collaboratively with parents, teachers, school administrators, a few others, in alignment with Oregon Health educational standards and performance indicators. And I have a quote here from some district literature. Our HSD Comprehensive Sexuality Education Plan is updated biennially in collaboration with other state and local health agencies and with input and feedback from our teachers, counselors, and the CCAC. I don't see parents mentioned in there, but let's talk about the CCAC. I was there the whole time, January through June, and there were parents in the room, which is good. In the CCAC, the school district told me, a parent, if I had concerns, I could just opt out. To me, this is exclusion masquerading poorly as an inclusive plan. It's not inclusive at all. It's also not collaboration with parents. We met for an hour and a half each month for 6 months. We listened to a lot of one-sided guest speakers. We spent less than 1 hour spread across 2 meetings reviewing the actual material. We were not given choices. We were not allowed to review the content at home. It was just a light review and a vote. It is laughable compared to the recent efforts of many parents to review and give feedback. This may be okay for math curriculum, but for CSE it is not enough collaboration with parents. The vote included 7 people, 6 voted to recommend. Of those, I would say that maybe 3 or 4 of them were actual parents. For a school district of this size, this is not collaboration with parents. The last board meeting, the parents who commented were told that their concerns were not valid because the material had been changed a lot and only finally posted that day. It turns out almost all those concerns were still valid at that point. Regardless, this sounds more like a tactic to disarm and discredit parents than to collaborate with parents. Finally, for the last 30 days, the district has been accepting a deluge of emails and comment cards at an open house and viewing night and making last-minute changes based on them. Thank you. They are a step in the right direction. Without taking time to check and make sure that the district heard right, or that the changes were made completely, for that matter. No two-way conversation in many cases. This is not collaboration with parents. We need parents from both sides of this issue putting in loads of time talking at the table with the district to collaborate from start to end. What we've seen in the last 8 months of parental avoidance, what I have seen instead is 8 months of parental avoidance and 1 month of reluctant token changes being made haphazardly for a needless and self-imposed deadline. It lacks collaboration with parents. Without collaboration with parents, we risk having a plan that does not match the blend of our values in our community. No amount of opt-out will compensate for that. Do the right thing. There is not enough time to fix this year. Vote no. Use Division 22 to extend legally, and this time collaborate with parents. Do what Gill and the OD asked. Collaborate with parents. Thank you.
before you start, I'm going to have the next 5 speakers also line up on here. Line over here. So before I line up the next 5, Angie, I noticed you're there, so I will let you speak. Just a second, let me get the rest of the people behind you. We will have Reed Christensen, Soledad Ayers, Amy Gold, Mia Smith, and Peter Young line up behind Angie. And Michael, if you wouldn't mind, let me just have her go since she was here earlier. Go ahead, Angie.
Thank you. Sorry, I was not feeling well earlier. Appreciate it. My name is Angie. I have 3 kids in the Hillsboro School District, and I'm not one to get politically involved. I'm usually pretty laid back. But when I feel that my children are being exposed to an ideology that is not yet scientifically proven, and there is research on both sides as we've heard tonight, and when I feel that my parental rights are being jeopardized, I feel like this mother bear is coming out of her den. I've spent the last 5 months extensively studying this curriculum as it's changed over the course, and I've also been made aware of how CSE is affecting the global community, and I am becoming more and more shocked at its attempts to overstep into parental rights. They are trying to get an inch so that they can take a mile, and if you don't believe me, just look at what's happening in California. Oregon is roughly 5 to 6 years behind California, and in California, opt-out is illegal. It is illegal to opt your child out of curriculum. Additionally, they have just made it illegal to homeschool your child unless you have a teaching degree. Due to another law recently passed in Oregon starting in 2023, it will be required that our schools teach this material, CSE, in every subject, excluding math and science. Why is sex getting into every subject? This will make opt-out extremely difficult for parents, for teachers to deal with, and the schools to deal with. I feel like, personally, this is a large-scale tactic that clearly has an agenda, which is becoming less of a hidden agenda as stories are sweeping across the nation, followed up by ugly lawsuits and legal cases. It seems that their real agenda is to completely shove parents out and indoctrinate our children the way they see fit. In reality, these dangers are truly grooming our children into an over-sexualized world. And this crisis is bigger than our little town here in Hillsboro. It's bigger than the state. It's bigger than even our nation. This is a global crisis of protecting our children. And the parents are not just going to go away in a few months or a year. We are invested in our children for their entire lifetime and for ours. I believe that our city here in Hillsboro does not need to bow down to big-wig organizations. Parents here care. It is not too late to stand up for what we know is right and to not let them get their foot in the door here in our community. We are fortunate enough to be able to stop it here tonight before it strikes our homes. Although no matter what happens here tonight, I hope that all parents here know that they have a voice, and together we can defend our children and cast out the moral controversial subjects that the world is trying to enforce on our children in a large scale. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Michael Turk, and I'm a parent here in the district. After reading the materials posted online, I would like to encourage the board to adopt this comprehensive sexuality education curriculum. I believe that age-appropriate, medically accurate information is vital to the health of our children and of our communities. I also appreciate the efforts here to be inclusive of all people's gender identities, expressions, and orientations. This anatomically accurate curriculum will have a measurable benefit in preventing sexual abuse, among many other health benefits. I've been a foster parent, and I see the emails about kids that need homes. And especially for these vulnerable members of our community, accurate and healthy sexuality education matters in preventing abuse and in helping all students to flourish. Thank you very much, and I encourage you to adopt this curriculum.
Thank you. Jolene.
We're gonna say, okay. My name is Jolene, and I'm speaking on behalf of my kids. I want to thank the district for all the changes you have made in the CIC curriculum since the last board meeting. For example, thank you for removing oral and anal sex from the 6th grade lessons. In the 1st grade lesson, thank you for not teaching about sexual body parts that have nothing to do with reproduction. As I have studied the CIC curriculum, I have found that it is full of really good information for students in our district, such as abuse and violent prevention and anti-bullying. I think all of us can agree that no child should be bullied. However, I am still asking you to vote no. Don't pass it yet. There are still many items of concern. For example, just 2 weeks ago, it was brought to your attention the 4th grade lesson in which the teacher asked students to raise their hand if anyone has touched them in a way they didn't want or that made them feel uncomfortable. Then the teacher asked students to share their story with the class. Should children be asked to share in their classroom about being molested? Of course not. And that is why you removed it from the lesson. And I am so thankful. But how many more things are there in the lessons that we haven't discovered yet? We need more time. The middle school and high school curriculum is not appropriate still. I am a mother of 2 people with penises, which is what they will be called in middle school and high school, according to this curriculum. We will be opting out because these are my boys. They are boys, and they will not be reduced to their sexual parts. And I won't let them be called anything else. Opting out is not just as easy as just opt out. In high school, you will be opting out of health, social studies, and language arts. You'll need to coordinate with those teachers which days and when they're going to be teaching which lessons. In some of the lessons, it's even in math and art in high school. I just want to end with a quote from a world-famous spiritual leader who I love and admire. Your ability to discern truth from error, to be society's guardians of morality, is crucial in these latter days, and we depend on you to teach others to do likewise. Let me be very clear about this. If the world loses the moral rectitude of its women and men, the world will never recover. Please vote no.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Zach Hammer. And I know you're speaking on behalf of the group, I heard. So the other thing I was just going to mention, after the speaker, the board is just going to take a quick 5-minute recess so that we can use the restroom. So I'll let you go, and then just so that everybody's aware that we're going to take a little break after. But we'll continue and resume for the same time that we have left.
My name is Zach Hammer. I'm the organizing director at Stand for Children here in Oregon. Thank you for your time, Board of Directors. Stand for Children is here in support of comprehensive sex education. We support this policy because the data supports this policy. Every decision that we make at Stand for Children is data-driven and community-driven. Both the communities around Oregon and the data support comprehensive sexual education within Hillsboro School District. I'm also a member of the queer community as well as a non-binary person. I grew up in a small town in Texas, more cows than people. We did not have comprehensive sex education, as you can imagine. Every day from 7th grade on, I was called the F word. That was because no one thought to include queer education within our schools. Those students didn't understand the impacts that they had. The fact that we have people in this room that think gender or sexuality are a choice is proof enough that we need this. We urge you to...
So we're just going to take a quick recess, and we'll be right back to finish our allotted time for public comment.
of our allotted time for public comment, so I just want to make sure that I list out the names of the people that are going to be speaking. Again, just to remind everyone, we're going to have Suzanne Colvin, Patrick McGuire, Reed Christensen, Soledad Ayers, Amy Gold, Mia Smith, Peter Young, and our last speaker will be David Diaz. If you could please line up on either side of the podium, whichever is closer to you, and again, I'll repeat the names as we go forward. Our next speaker, Suzanne Colvin.
Sorry, that me? Could I go now? All right, my name is Suzanne Colvin, and I'm a parent in Hillsboro School District. And I want to thank you all for listening and for providing a venue where we can all express opinions and concerns. I really appreciate that. I also want to say I appreciated the open houses that were made available to parents. I really liked that. I just wanted to start by saying that I believe every individual has infinite and intrinsic value. And I believe everyone has a right to live according to the dictates of their own conscience and to allow everyone to do the same. In saying this, I acknowledge there will be disagreements, yet I hope we can respectfully disagree. As I've studied the CSE curricula, I found areas where I disagree with the way and manner in which the concepts are taught. I just want to share a few examples. In a lesson titled More Than Friends, taught in 6th grade, sexual activity is discussed throughout the lesson, but nothing indicates an emphasis on abstinence. I find this to be contradictory when ORS Rule 581.022.1440 states the curricula, quote, promotes abstinence for school-age youth and mutually monogamous relationships with an uninfected partner for adults as the safest and mostly responsible sexual behavior to reduce the risk of unintended pregnancy and exposure to HIV, hepatitis B, C, and other sexually transmitted infectious diseases. In an 8th grade lesson, the preface of the lesson for teachers says, quote, it is important you convey that you want your students to have healthy, intimate relationships at some point in their lives, which may include a satisfying sex life if that is what they want. This may be now, soon, or in the future, unquote. In the state of Oregon, it is illegal for children under the age of 18 to consent to sex. So why would a teacher be encouraging 8th graders to have a satisfying sex life now? In a 7th grade lesson, students are asked, quote, where are some good places someone could go if they wanted to learn more about puberty, the reproductive system, or for support in managing the changes of puberty and adolescence, unquote. The curriculum lists several sources such as books, school DVDs, school nurse, reliable internet sites, school-based health clinic, but does not mention parents. Another lesson for 7th grade talks about consent. The entire lesson focuses on making sure both parties are in agreement before sexual activity. However, it does not mention risks of early sexual behavior, abstinence, and or the Oregon consent law, except for a link for the teacher in relation to adult teen rape. And there's no instruction mentioned to students. With that in mind, I just hope that you can provide more collaboration for parents and to vote no on the plan. Thank you.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with so many friends on the board and in the audience today from our Hillsboro community. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet, my name is Patrick and I serve on the Curriculum Advisory Committee that reviewed and recommended this curriculum. I'm honored to represent the community on a number of boards, but this is the one I take the most seriously and consider the most weighty because it involves the well-being and health of our young people and children. And I know that's a responsibility so many here as parents and board members also feel to take very seriously. And I want to start briefly by noting that everyone in this room has a great deal in common. I greatly respect the wonderful folks who are here from all perspectives, and I know if the people here have sat in on our curriculum committee meetings on things like wonderful new teaching tools in the science curriculum and new curriculum to more fully include those who have disabilities, everyone would be in unanimous accord on those things. So I think we agree on 95% of these things, and we should keep in mind all those things that unite us. But it's true that on rare occasions, such as this, we do have different opinions about curricular matters, and that's why we have elections and an elected school board to represent the values of our Hillsboro community, values of inclusion and tolerance and making sure everyone is heard and everyone has a chance to thrive. So the curriculum committee heard for many months from experts in the field, sexuality education and gender identity inclusion. These are people not just who research the subjects, but they're people who research how to introduce them in an age-appropriate way, educational experts. And after hearing all of their reports, I am convinced that the modified proposal as recommended by staff is appropriate and necessary, and I urge its adoption by the board. I respect very much people from different faiths and customs. It's not just a slogan that our diversity is our strength, it's a truth. I know that because of this, the curriculum committee has proposed a very robust parental notification and opt-out procedure that's been included in the plan. But I believe that the baseline standard that we're all supporting must be defined by the research of experts as to what's best for the health and well-being of those students in our district. That has to be core to what we do. We only get one chance to fully educate and keep our students safe and healthy. I'm convinced by all that I've seen that the best way we can achieve this goal is to adopt this program of comprehensive education. So I urge you to be courageous and strong, and for all of Hillsboro's students, vote yes on this plan. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Reed Christensen, lived in the Hillsboro School District for 30 years. I had 5 kids go through the school system. Currently have 15 grandkids, 10 of whom will be going through Oregon schools. So I've been doing a little thinking about why this is so contentious. Obviously people on both sides feel very strongly about this. And I got to thinking that probably the reason why is because this comes to the core of who humans are, right? That's what religion is all about, and that's what the discussions we've been having tonight is: who am I? Why am I here on this earth? What is my identity? How do I relate to others? How do I relate to my family? Those are core issues for every human being, and that's why it's so contentious. You've got good people on both sides who feel strongly about the issue. So I was wondering, well, how do you resolve something like this? I mean, it seems like the only way to resolve it is one side's got to beat the other down, and we've got to yell and scream at each other. But I think there's actually a uniquely American solution to this. What we used to do in the old country, back in Europe, was we had religious wars. When Protestantism first started coming out, there was 100 years of conflict before everybody sorted themselves out into different areas so they could all be with people they believed the same with. And that was not a pretty picture. So how did the Americans solve it when we came here? Well, we established freedom of religion, freedom of speech. And we said, okay, you can have your individual important beliefs in your heart, and you can say those beliefs to anybody you want to. And if you say them to me, I'm not going to pick up a club and hit you over the head. I'm going to say, I'm glad you have that opinion. Here's my opinion. This was a uniquely American solution to the problem. We don't have to divide ourselves into groups. We don't have to split up. We say everyone has a right to their opinion, and they can say it. And the problem I have currently with the plan as it's listed is it seems to me that it's too much on one side beating the other side on the head and saying, your kids have to believe this. The only way to solve the problem is for one side to win. I have to beat the other side on the head until they agree with me. But I would just encourage us to spend time as parents, as people with other opinions, to spend the time to come up with a uniquely American solution where everybody's opinion and their beliefs can be respected, but we're not trying to beat the other person over the head to get them to believe my way. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, school board. I have to acknowledge that I'm short, and also that I don't like speaking in front of large audiences, so just in case I got called tonight, I psyched myself up if there were like 50 people here. Thank you for presenting me with this challenge. I am here tonight as a community member. I live and work in Hillsboro. I am a family physician. I believe in preventative medicine, and I am a mother of 2 children, one of whom attends public school here, and the other will in a few years when he is older. You might have heard him crying several times tonight. Comprehensive sexual education is absolutely supported by a number of health organizations, including the American Medical Association, the American Association of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the American Public Health Association, and many others. It works. Having comprehensive sex ed for our students has been shown to delay age of sexual of coitarchy, which is initiation of sexual activity, decreased number of partners, increased use of contraception, which leads to decreased pregnancy rates for our teenagers and decreased STI rates. This is absolutely the purview of our public education system. Teenagers who become pregnant are much less likely to graduate from high school, and that's something that our school district should be concerned about. The CDC reports that teenagers who become pregnant have a 50% graduation rate or high school diploma achievement by age 22 versus 90% of their peers who do not become pregnant. So I think that this is definitely something that we need to teach. In addition, in regards to the LGBTQ+ community, my son, who is 6, has a peer his age who does not fit into the standard gender binary, and this is something he has questions about, and so teaching him and teaching his peers to accept and understand their peers, I think is absolutely important for everybody. I don't want to repeat a lot of things that have been said tonight, but I absolutely urge you to support this plan. I think this is a good plan. It's not perfect. Nothing is going to be perfect, and nobody's going to agree with every single part. If we sit 2 people down to look at this, they're never going to agree. There's no way our community of 100,000 is going to agree, but I think this is very good, and very good is good enough. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Gold, and then we have Mia Smith, Peter Young, and David Diaz.
I'm a little taller than she was. Thank you. I'm a mother of 5 children. Our kids have been enrolled in the Hillsboro School District for about the last 11.5 years. And I must say that we've had some excellent teachers for our children. I've been so happy to partner with the Hillsboro School District in the education of my children. And so far I've trusted them with that. This curriculum that's being proposed is a vast shift from what has been done in the past. It's not just adopting another math or science or social studies curriculum. It is going right down to the values that families hold and how they teach their children at home, which I think is a deep issue that touches many of us, as we've seen tonight. I'm concerned about the teachers that are being asked to teach sexually explicit material, especially to young children. I feel for them because I don't know if they have a voice in this. I don't know if they can say whether they oppose or whether they accept this. And I'm concerned about them. And I'd like to speak on behalf of them. I know that there is, from what I can gather, it seems like this is a done deal, and maybe training, I think training has already started for teachers, and they're told if they don't want to teach it, they can opt out. I think this presents a problem for your workforce. I think it's divisive for your workforce. I think it's wrong to pressure teachers to teach something that they don't feel is right. And in fact, one of my friends told me that a teacher was told that if they didn't want to teach it, that they'd have to find a substitute, and then but then they would be required to be in the classroom while that material was being taught to the children, which I don't feel is right. I understand we each have our own different opinions, but as a parent, I'm my child's first teacher. I have a sacred responsibility to watch over and care for my child, and I trust God trusts me with that, and I don't want anyone to take away that right from me as a parent. And I urge you, please, vote no, take some more time. These are our children, and we have entrusted them to you, but we are their first parents. Thank you.
name is Mia Smith, and I'm also a parent of 2 very small children in the Hillsboro School District. But in addition to that, I am also a public health educator and a Master of Public Health student at a prestigious teaching university. Tonight, I have listened to the opinions and feelings and religious convictions of the opposition and all of those who oppose this curriculum. And I absolutely empathize with all of you. Your feelings are valid, your beliefs are valid. I also have my own opinions, beliefs, and religious convictions regarding sex and sex education, and what I think they should be. Unfortunately, I'm not here to speak about feelings. I'm not here to speak about beliefs. I am not here to push my own deeply held values on anyone. I am here to discuss objectively the research and the evidence that supports this curriculum. I have dedicated my life and career to helping others live longer, healthier lives. That includes children. Decades of indisputable research have shown that this is accomplished through education that allows individuals, including children, to make decisions about their health. As such, I have studied the effects of varying methods of sexual health education on youth all over the United States and the health outcomes that result from those different methods. I have volunteered here, both here and abroad, to develop sexual health curriculum and teach sexual health and health promotion to students both inside and outside of school settings. Comprehensive sex education is medically accurate, age-appropriate, and evidence-based, and it is essential to reducing sexual violence against children and minors, teenage pregnancy, and subsequent abortion rates, something I think we can all agree on. We would like to reduce sex among teens. We'd like to reduce the subsequent abortions. That should not be a partisan issue. Sexually transmitted infections are reduced when children are given this education, and it lessens the stigma and discrimination faced against LGBTQ students. Even rates of sexual activity goes down in students. This is a fact. You can look it up in the statistics. And the persistent myth that sexual health education promotes activity is just that, a myth. I would like to offer my services to you to compile an annotated bibliography of the research that I have privy to through Oregon Health and Science University. I've read through Oregon's curriculum, and as a professional, I personally find that it is evidence-based, age-appropriate. I understand that some of the topics are against personal beliefs, but I beg of you to pass this for the good of the children.
Is Peter still here? Okay, we'll move to our last speaker, which is David Diaz.
Obrigado por me deixando falar hoje. Thank you for letting me speak. I've just translated the first part of my speech, and I hope I'm allotted 6 minutes now to speak. I also represent the Latino community. I was born an undocumented immigrant, or I came here as an undocumented immigrant. Say again? Can you not hear me? No, I don't represent you.
Hold that comments, please.
But I represent members of that community. I came here illegally, escaping a military dictatorship where people were brutalizing other people. I understand full well what people of different opinions, different nationalities, different races, different sex, orientation, all that stuff. I understand what that feels like. I reject the idea that voting no and asking for other marginalized members of our community to sit and be heard at this table is a vote to marginalize another diversity group. LGBT is a member of a broader, diverse community. They are not all of it. People of different nationality, people of different national origin, people of different genders, sexual orientation, all make up a greater community that is represented here in Hillsboro. And I reject this idea that their voices are not important. I had to fight to speak today. I came twice to 2 different board meetings to speak. And I mean no disrespect, but how many Latinos, how many different nationalities were represented at these microphones today? In a community with over 20% Hispanics, how many of them were here? How many of them were heard? How many Hindus were heard? How many Muslims have been heard? Did they make up any of this curriculum? Look, I don't believe that diversity belongs to one group. It belongs to everybody. And part of that group, despite however hard it may be, is religion. That is a part of that conversation. I'm also a member of a community that was marginalized. I belong to a community where it was legal in the United States of America to kill people of my religious belief. It was protected under state law to kill people that believe the way I do. How many other communities can say that? Check it out. It's in the Governor Boggs in Missouri. And it wasn't until recently that the state of Missouri issued an apology for that. So all of these LGBT people here have a voice that should be listened to and should be represented in that school. I firmly agree with that. But all of these people here that believe in a variety of different religions, whether Christian, Hindu, Muslim, or whatever it may be, should also feel comfortable sitting in that exact same classroom. And they should be able to be represented. And you know what? Voting no to give everybody an ability to speak, just give them time to be heard. Give them time to be a part of this community. And let them sit at the table with our LGBT friends and sisters and brothers and whatever genders they are. It doesn't matter, but they should all be part of the global community and not marginalized. I cut this finger right here when I was a kid. I was sharpening my pencil, studying at one of these schools. My children come to the Hillsboro School District. I went to, unfortunately, Beaverton. You guys are much better. I cut my finger, and my mother had to patch this finger back on because I was told that if I went to the hospital, that I faced deportation because we were here illegally. Undocumented now. And believe it or not, back in those days, it was the Democrats that didn't want us. I've lived long enough to see the pendulum swing both sides. And you don't want to know something? I felt marginalized. So I bleed with them because I have cousins and family members that are part of the LGBT community, and they're loved by me and my family and everybody else. So I reject that this no vote to give everybody a chance to speak is a vote that I want this community to be harmed. It's not true. And to represent that, I still have 45 seconds, right? And I want all of you to know that I unconditionally love you. And
Rights, not love. Rights, not love. We don't need that. We need people to not bully us.
Please hold your comments, please.
Idiot. We
Please
don't
hold
need your
your
love. We
comments.
need rights.
Please hold your comments.
I'm an idiot.
Say something real. Say facts. Say evidence. Don't just say your love and your opinion.
Ma'am.
You know what? The start is real, man.
Stop the timer.
What I went through was real. And I didn't interrupt any single person, but I was interrupted tonight. Is that? Well,
You translated a little, so you got extra time. Good for you.
So please, I urge you to invite all members of our community to sit at this table.
Thank you everyone for your time and your comments, the time that you took to come out tonight to listen to everybody. And I know it's really tough to sit here for a long time, so I appreciate that. With that said, I'm going to move to our next item, which is our board discussion on this topic, and give each one of our board members some time to give any thoughts or discussion if they should have any as well. So we'll start at the end with our student representatives.
So, hi. I don't know where the microphone's going to go right now, but we'll go here, and maybe knock that over, I don't know. I sit here tonight, I sit on the board tonight as a student representative to the school board. In this role, I take the voices of my classmates and other students to the board. I've been talking to lots of students in the district about this curriculum. Some of them are here tonight, and I can tell you that students want this. I've talked to students who are survivors of abuse. One classmate told me how much they wished this was what they were learning when they were younger because it might have helped them know sooner that what was going on was not right. I have students who have children of their own. One told me how much that they loved their son, like so much, but how much they wished that they knew more about how to have safe sex and prevent pregnancy. I talked with my LGBT classmates, and as one myself, I can say that this is necessary. When I was in middle school, I was tormented in the hallways and locker rooms with slurs and insults. I fully believed that if this was what we were learning then, it wouldn't have happened. Or if it had happened, it would have been easier to handle. As a non-binary student, I wish we talked more about gender, and this is just so important. I really urge the board to vote yes on this.
So I did not write down a full speech like Danny did, so I'm just speaking from what I've heard tonight. I am not a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. At the same time, I have not necessarily always been a member of the opposition group. What I can say from my perspective and from my lens as a student is that if this curriculum decreases the number of homophobic and transphobic slurs being uttered in the hallways or in different groups within the Hillsboro School District, and if this curriculum keeps students from killing themselves, from taking their lives, then I support it. However, if this is a matter of time, if this is a matter of people's minds might change if they have more time to review, even a month more to review, if that's what could get potentially more people to agree to the curriculum, then I say give more time. But at this point, my overall thought on this is very much conflicted, for lack of better words.
Okay, I'm so shaky. As a student rep of Hill High, which I'm pretty sure is probably one of the most diverse, with one of the most diverse populations, I can see that community reflected in the curriculum presented. It is super very inclusive and super very diverse. So in that, we should think about that community. Now, as a young brown woman, we don't learn a lot about this at home, which is unfortunate, and along with similar students like me, our way of learning about this specific topic is through school, because at home it is impossible. Not because our parents choose not to, but because it's not always possible when their jobs are their first priority to give their children their needs. And if there are kids who have the privilege to be taught about this topic at home, perfect, that is super cool. But let's not forget about those kids who don't get that opportunity from their family members, from their guardians, from their parents. So let's also consider that. But Entering high school is also where young students, young people finally start coming up with their own thoughts, their own decisions. And when I went through the curriculum in health, which was 2 years ago, I didn't learn as much as I have these past 2 years. And so obviously the curriculum has to evolve as years go by. And seeing this new curriculum, it's a lot of the things that I am barely learning this year on my own. And as I see that I can learn from this curriculum, I think that people who will be learning it in 10th grade, which is when I learned it, will learn and benefit a lot. So I really support this curriculum. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. I know it's really hard to get up and talk in front of 500 to 600 people. I also want to thank Travis and the CCAC for the tremendous amount of work, as well as Mike, in collating feedback from parents and updating the curriculum. There were some very big changes made, and I feel like it's a very middle ground, as much as we're probably going to get. Sex education is life education. And as my daughter eloquently said, I didn't know better. And I want our kids and the next generation to know better and to teach their kids what I didn't teach my daughter. Cultural responsiveness was brought up a lot tonight. And I had to look it up, to be honest with you. And it says, it is the ability to learn from and relate respectfully with people of your own culture as well as those from other cultures. And I'll just leave that there.
Probably hear similar things from most of us online. Thank you all for coming. And thank those of you who had the bravery and opportunity to speak in front of everyone. I know it's not easy to do, so thank you all for just being here, and thank you for presenting us with all of your opinions and your passion. Thank you to the staff. Berate might be a strong word, for your patience for me persistently being inquisitive. How's that? I appreciate that very much, that you guys managed to remain patient through all of that. Can't speak for the entire board, you can only speak for yourself. I don't have any idea how any of my colleagues intend to vote on this. Be very careful not to discuss that issue with anyone, so I don't really know what's going to happen. What I can tell you is that I've heard from people on both ends of the spectrum, people who feel like we shouldn't have any comprehensive sexuality education or any sex education at all in the schools, and I've heard from people who feel that we do not go far enough in this curriculum. I feel like those two polar opposites do not represent most people. I feel like most people are somewhere in that spectral range in the middle. What I hope is that if we pass this curriculum tonight, I hope that the parents who feel that we're not going too far, or not going far enough, have the opportunity at home to discuss those issues with their students and fill in the gaps or continue their education at home. What I hope is that people on the other end of the spectrum, that an opt-out process is easy to execute, that the students who are chosen to opt out are not ostracized in any way. And I think it's important to sort of remember, well, one parent said sort of resonate, he was on this side, resonated pretty well, that I believe, and Travis can correct me, now's your chance to fact check. If I'm wrong, I believe you can opt out of specific portions of the curriculum. You don't have to opt out of the entire curriculum. So if you are one of those parents who believes that a lot of the content is going to be appropriate for the kid, I encourage you to talk with your principal, talk with your student's teacher, and figure out what topics are going to be included on what days, and don't blanket opt out if you feel like you're somewhere in that middle ground there. Don't have any idea what's going to happen. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate everybody's input.
It's supposed to be automatic, and it is. Okay. Well, I'd love to echo the thoughts of thanks that my colleagues have shared. We definitely appreciate hearing from the community and hearing a variety of perspectives. So I do have some thoughts that I would like to share before we vote. The first thing I'd like to address is what our plan is. Not working. What am I doing? Okay. What the plan actually is It is a plan that combines traditional sexual education with sexual violence prevention, and it also does include a variety of sexual orientations and gender identities, which is required under the standards for the state of Oregon. This plan is a collaboration between the district and the community, as we all saw here this evening. Numerous changes were made to the plan that was originally presented to the board and the plan that is being voted on tonight look very different. And is it me?
No,
Okay, and the reason they look different is because that feedback was heard loud and clear and it was incorporated wherever possible. The board has had a laser focus on ensuring that the final plan meets the standards for the state of Oregon and in no way exceeds them. We revised the opt-out process as requested, creating a much easier process that will be implemented. And that is the only thing that is much more liberal than the standards for the state of Oregon is the opt-out process. The next thing I'd like to talk about is my personal role and my personal process. I'm the parent of a first grade daughter and a young fourth grade son. With that lens, I combed through every single line of every single lesson with a thorough eye for age appropriateness. I also have a master's degree in teaching, and I agree that the experts are correct and our plan is 100% in compliance and age appropriate. In terms of my decision-making process as a board member, I have read every word of every email and every comment submitted. I met with several community members and listened to their thoughts and shared my own. I've advocated for every single reasonable change to this plan, every single one, despite my own personal values. That is to say, changes that could be made while still keeping Hillsboro School District in compliance with the standards. I have absolutely done due diligence in ensuring compromise and incorporation of a variety of community feedback and perspectives. What I have not done, and I will not and cannot do, is advocate for a plan that is not in compliance with Oregon standards. That is a request that would require me to shirk my responsibility as a board member, which I take very seriously. I can't count the number of emails I have received that have asked us to exclude sexual orientation or gender identity from the plan and to just teach kindness, or to exclude it because it impacts such a small minority of students. I feel compelled to say that ignoring and pretending as if an entire group of people do not exist is anything but kind. The Oregon Health Authority estimates that as many as 22% of our young people have a sexual orientation other than straight and/or do not identify on the traditional gender binary. As many as 22%. I'll come back to that in just a second. It was very important to the board that we recognize the very diverse district we serve and the wide variety of values and religious beliefs therein. For that reason, we ensured that a very clear and easy opt-out process is included in the plan, which is the only part, as I said, of the CSE plan that goes beyond what is required by the state of Oregon. Finally, my personal thoughts about this vote. As a board member, I have pushed for back-bending compromise in this plan. If I were not a board member, I would be advocating for a much more comprehensive and inclusive plan that aligns with the values of my family. But it is not my plan, it is the Hillsboro School District's plan. So though it is not the plan that I would personally like to see, it does meet and does not exceed the Oregon standards. It's back to the minority of LGBTQ plus young people, up to 22%. We have a little over 20,000 students in the Hillsboro School District. 22% of 20,000 is 4,840. 4,840. That's about as much as the total enrollment at our largest 3 high schools combined. Those 4,840 students are a critical, valuable, important part of our community. My kids could be 2 of those, or 0. But it doesn't matter. Whether they're my kids or they're your kids, they deserve to be included and not have their identities erased or ignored. More time has been asked for tonight. More time will not change the standards which require the inclusion of sexual orientation and gender identity, and they will not change people's beliefs. I do not support, as I have said to many of you via email, a delay. We have a plan to vote on tonight that promotes lifelong health, encourages healthy relationships, reduces the likelihood for sexual violence and abuse, supports self-esteem, advocates for acceptance of others, and fosters healthy boundaries and self-advocacy for students. But ultimately, if a family doesn't like the sound of that, then they can opt out. With my vote, I
I can ensure that that plan comes to fruition. So I will be voting to approve this comprehensive sexuality education plan in the strongest possible terms.
I just wanted to take this time to say thank you to all of the students, the parents, and the community members who are here tonight. I know that these past 30 days have been challenging, but what it has done for me is that it's affirmed how much our community cares about our students and how much our community cares about every single student that is in our community. And so I want to thank you for wanting to be informed. I want to thank you for wanting to be engaged. And I also want to thank you for wanting to do what is best for your family as you see fit. As you may see from the people who are sitting next to you in this room, we come from a variety of different backgrounds. Our families look very, very different, whether it's culturally or whether it's through beliefs. And as such, I'm learning that even my role in advocacy for my nephews or my niece who attend Hillsboro schools, or even for the foster children that I work with, look very different than my role in advocacy for the over 20,000 students of our school district. And so my hope is that regardless of what the vote is tonight, I hope that there will be a continued dialogue. I hope that we will continue to keep our 20,000 plus students' best interest at the forefront of all of our decisions. Thank you.
Wow, Lisa, tell me how you really feel. I'm going to just go ahead and echo the thanks for all the community engagement that we received, all the comments, and I read every single email. And on a lot of those emails, for some reason, people didn't think that they would be heard or didn't think that their email would be read. And it's quite the opposite. We heard you, we listened, which resulted in the changes that were made to this curriculum. I do agree that what is being approved today, or depending on what the decision outcome is something that is in the middle, and that I myself am proud of, and I think our district did a really good job incorporating the state standards and not overstepping that. From my own reflection on this curriculum, I know had I had something like this when I was young, it could have changed my life in many ways. So I am glad that we are making a curriculum that's more inclusive of all students. And I just want to say that, including other students doesn't mean that we're excluding anybody else. There's room for everybody.
Well, I too want to commend everybody who had the courage to come up and address this crowd. It is a very scary thing to do, and regardless of your opinion, I thank you for sharing it. One of the things that is unique about American democracy is all voices are heard, and we experienced that tonight. I would also compliment everybody who came out tonight. I think we're all better for it as a community. This absolutely, positively was the best discussion of these issues I've ever experienced, and I am much richer for it, and I hope that each of you feel enriched by coming this evening and being a part of this evening, and perhaps part of the process that the district has led. So I too want to compliment Travis and Hillsboro School District. I am very deferential to their professional opinion as the educators. That's kind of where I start my assessment of all things that come before us as a board. And I find that their process and their diligence and their research and their professionalism as they've developed this plan passes muster in my opinion. I'm very pleased with the community engagement. All voices were heard, and I think we're in a good place. I'm very comfortable, just to cut to the chase, I'm very comfortable with the curriculum and the plan that we have developed. But I do want to speak to those who have concerns. I totally respect that, and I've met with a number of parents who really are in a position to provide a better, if you will, curriculum for their individual families. And the opt-out process is really designed to meet that need. For those parents and students who have a plan that's fully baked, that they're really gonna do, they're gonna have the talk at the right time, and make sure that it's bias-free and it's gonna produce a young adult ready for these issues on their own, I compliment you. I could not do that as a dad. And so I look through this as a lens of a dad, and I'm really grateful that HSD has developed a thoughtful, comprehensive curriculum that begins at kindergarten and is built year over year in a very thoughtful, deliberate, intentional way to produce young adults who are ready to navigate these issues, whether they personally experience it or their colleagues in the workforce are going to experience it. I've been involved in leadership and supervision since I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1985. And I wish that every workforce I had been a part of had had people who had benefited from this curriculum. A lot of sexual assaults would not have happened. A lot of bad outcomes would have been avoided. As a lieutenant colonel, I court-martialed a young airman for rape. And he went to prison for 8 years. And if he'd had this curriculum in his K-12 experience, he might not have committed that crime. That weighs heavily upon my mind. We really need to prepare our young adults for these issues. They're coming at us faster than most of us as parents are comfortable with. I would like to share a couple of things that really weighed heavy upon me. I looked at this through the lens of a supervisor in the workforce, and I know we need young adults coming into the workforce who are competent and sophisticated on these issues. But the other lens I looked at it through was the experience of my grandchildren. And here's some interesting facts that may or may not be good. 1/2 of American kids will have a smartphone by age 11. Think of all the content that comes through that smartphone into their young minds by age 11. Even more interesting, 1 in 5 will have a smartphone by age 8. This gives them pretty much unfiltered, unsupervised, free access to everything out there. And I'm telling you, there's some things out there that we need the K-12 system to make them ready to handle. To know limits, to know boundaries, to have a fairly well-developed ability to navigate these issues, because they're coming at them. They're coming at them at every age. They're coming at them in ways that make us all uncomfortable. And I have confidence in our K-12 system to appropriately navigate those issues and provide a curriculum that's going to meet their needs and meet our needs as a community. And I really feel that passionately, with great respect to those parents and communities who feel they can navigate these issues better. That is entirely within the realm of this curriculum with the opt-out. And so I think that the baseline of what we should be doing in HSD is to make all of our students ready for career in college, career or college, and make them young adults who are sophisticated and competent on all these issues. And where I'm at personally is I have read probably 400 emails, and I've met with a number of members of the community. Many of them are here, and many of them on different sides of the issue. I just want you to know you don't have to avoid me if you are on the other side of the issue. I consider you a dear friend and a respected member of the community, and I profoundly appreciate your involvement in your child's education and more broadly in the Hillsboro School District and the community. So again, salute everybody who had the courage to come up here, and I thank everybody for giving of their evening and being a part of this process.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Hearing all my colleagues share their thoughts is something that as chair I have to consider, as well as managing a room full of people who have different perspectives and different viewpoints, and ensure that we can still engage in discussion in a respectful manner. And I just want to thank you all very much for doing your best to abide by the rules of our meeting and to be respectful to one another. I know that it's hard when you have passionate feelings regarding certain topics or certain material that the board works on, and so I just want to extend my appreciation for you and for just holding decorum and making sure that we set an example for the students that we have in the room, that even though we don't agree on everything, we can still come together in one room and have these discussions and present our ideas and remain respectful to one another. And ultimately, that's what I want to make sure that everybody in this room takes away from that, because we're all the same people that we were 2 hours ago before this meeting started. Everyone that's around here next to you is still going to be your neighbor. It's still going to be the parent of the child that your kid goes to or plays in the playground. And this is Hillsboro, and I love this community. I'm from here, and walking in these halls when I came in today, I remembered being a freshman here in Glencoe, and now I have my teenagers that I'm raising, and I want to make sure that they make the best decisions possible, not just them, but everybody in our district. And again, I just want to echo that I thank everyone for the time to come out and for bringing your passion, your vulnerability, and your perspective. It does not fall on deaf ears, and we read every email. And as a chair, I'm responsible to responding, so I owe you guys still a lot, because there's still a lot in my inbox. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of weeks, because the conversation doesn't end tonight. This is really a beginning and a start to a dialogue. And I encourage you to surround yourself with people that have different perspectives and different views, because ultimately that's what makes us grow as individuals, is being able to understand one another, putting ourselves in each other's shoes, and trying to walk a mile in them. So I thank you very much for your time and for coming out. And with that, I'm looking for a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Plan for 2019 to 2021.
Second.
Jackie has moved that the Board of Directors approve the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Plan for 2019-2021, and it has been seconded by Adira. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. We're going to take a brief recess. We still have agenda items, but you don't have to stay. I know that many of you have sat long enough. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and we'll take a brief 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Sorry. And our next item on our agenda is reports and discussion. And the first item we have is October 1st enrollment with Conwell Civilians.
Right.
Right out center.
All right.
If I get a microphone, I want to say.
No.
You can borrow mine. It's not working. There it is. There you go. Try it. You had one job.
Hello? There we go. Excellent. So I'm here to talk about the October 1st, 2019 enrollment report. And as you can see in the written report, we do have a decrease of students from last year's numbers from October 1st, 2018. It looks like we have 311 less students. But some of the information that I want to share with you will give you a little bit of an understanding as to why that number is less this year. Part of it has to do with, we had a larger senior class in 2018-19 that was replaced by a smaller than typical junior class this coming year. So that impacted our numbers. About 130 fewer, less students are in our senior class across the 4 comprehensive high schools. And additionally, we have a smaller incoming kindergarten class with about 36 less students than last year. So with those trends, those are similar to the trends that we see across the state and nationally with a lower birth rate. I want to let you also know that we have been tracking attrition data across the different grade levels, and some of the things that we're noticing at each of those grade levels, attrition data have to do around student mobility, lack of affordable housing, and some of our students are choosing alternative education choices like homeschooling and online options. So those are some of the reasons why our enrollments have changed. But we do know with David's demographics, we will be get a new report, demographic report, and they'll be providing us with that information later this year. But all of our indicators thus far are showing that we are going to be having more student growth, and our enrollment will be going up. So I just wanted to share those points with you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Kana. Our next item is our financial report with Michelle Morrison.
As you see in your packet, as you guys have seen in your packet, the financial report has kind of a narrative on what's going on in the business office, as well as our cash flows to date, and some information about student incidents, staff incidents, and workers' comp. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Yes, Jackie?
So I have a question about, I know we've asked before about room clear data. Are we still working on somehow tracking room clears?
Yes, we are. We don't currently have a system in place to do that, and each building, I understand, is tracking it in their own way.
Okay.
It's not reported as a student accident or incident to the business office.
So how are we, when and where can we expect reports on that?
I'm going to let you talk to Jordan. He's putting a system in place for that.
We have implemented a system to track the room clear data, so we're collecting that through a survey that each school fills out with some information about what caused it and how they dealt with it. So,
Are we tracking the demographics of the students that are causing the room clear? As far as, so we can look at that through maybe our equity lens and make sure that we're, I'm not sure.
we would know who the student is, yes. So we can pull any of that information.
Okay. And when can we expect some kind of numbers reporting?
We definitely would be collecting, we started collecting at the beginning of the school year, so it would be throughout this year. So if we wanted some preliminary data throughout, we could do that. But,
We looked at it today.
oh.
We looked at it today.
Oh, okay.
We can share.
Maybe in a board update. Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial report?
You're awesome. Great job as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next item on the agenda is HCU and HEA reports.
Good evening, my name is Anastasia Hernandez.
Wait a second, because your microphone is on.
Okay. Hi, good evening, Jill Boley, Hillsboro Education Association President. And first of all, I just want to say thank you To all of you, thank you for your selfless servitude. I know that you have truly spent hours and hours reading emails, and I'm sure reading the curriculum. And tonight, as the union president, I want to just reassure all of you that the teachers are professionals, and they really truly know how to navigate difficult curriculum. They do know the names, strength, and need of their students, and they know how to individualize to meet the needs of each and every student. They know that they cannot opt out of the curriculum, and they know how to obtain the resources and the supports that they need to be highly effective educators. Teachers do not have to find a substitute, and they know that, and they will not be made to co-teach the curriculum. I don't know if you noticed tonight, but dozens of the teachers were here, dozens of educators. They were here in support and in solidarity in support of the curriculum. And I also want to reassure you that every educator cares about every one of their students, and they will honor every parent's opt-out request and teach with fidelity and culturally responsibly the curriculum provided and approved tonight by the Hillsboro School Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you for having me. My name is Anastasia Hernandez. I'm an SEA 30 at Century High School. I'm here tonight to fill in for Melody, who is out of town. I would like to start off by saying thank you for approving the bus driver wage increase. This positive step will help recruit new drivers as well as retain the current drivers that we have. In addition, we have just begun a new wage study with the district and are excited to see the outcomes of this work as we move through this collaborative process. With student debt impacting more than 45 million across the nation, we want to let you know that HCU is also stepping up to teach our classified employees and members of our community free of charge on how to reduce their monthly payments and in some cases get their debt forgiven in as little as 10 years. Our first debt clinic was held in September and is part of our back to school campaign. We are scheduled to hold several more throughout the year, and we look forward to continuing this vital work and inviting our community to partake of our information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anastasia. All right, and with that, we have discussion time. We'll start with our student representatives.
Hi. I pretty much said everything that I was going to say big earlier, but I just want to thank you guys so much for supporting our LGBT community and all of our communities by, improving the curriculum. Thank you.
All right, so I kind of have some stuff that I've typed down over the course of tonight. I'll just read from here. I'd like to begin by addressing my opinion on sex ed. Glencoe has people for and against the adoption of the sex ed. I feel that we did meet both sides at a halfway point, and for that reason, as an individual, I am in support of the new sex ed, and that will not change. But as a student rep, I feel that something like this, where both sides exist at Glencoe, is difficult to represent equally, which is why I said earlier tonight that I felt conflicted in a vote. I'd like to recognize some groups at Glencoe. Congrats to men's soccer and volleyball for making the playoffs, and to football for being undefeated Hillsboro City champions, meaning we beat Century, Liberty, and Hill High in football. Also, congrats to Glencoe Choirs for a strong first concert, and to the Glencoe Marching Tide for strong performances at the Sunset Classic and Liberty Marching Arts Challenge. Last week at Glencoe was Pink Week, and many students wore pink during the week for breast cancer awareness and raised money for the Hillsboro Hematology and Oncology group at Swality Healthcare. As I've entered Glencoe student data from the Student Success Act survey, there are a few important trends to take into account. A vast majority of students view hiring more teachers as a top priority. Many classes here have at least 30 students, with one of my former teachers having 44 students in an AP class. A few years ago, I was in an art class with 47 other students and 6 teacher aides, along with our teacher. 55 is the speed limit, not the number of people who should be in an art studio. I also noticed that regarding qualities of a successful HSD graduate, many students wrote down determination as a characteristic of a successful HSD graduate. Glencoe students are among the most determined, as we have spent all of our time in a district that has seen significant budget cuts on a near annual basis. While some people may say otherwise, what I can say confidently is that many students are determined to create their own identities, forging paths and finding their voices as we begin leaving the 2010s and entering the next decade.
We were here first. Anyway, I was like, no one gets it? Anyway, yeah, everything that I said earlier is kind of that again. And I want to say thank you for listening to us. Thank you for having us. Thank you to the people who are here and who left already. But yeah.
Thank you, Maria. And with that, we're gonna have the superintendent's time.
All right, thank you. First of all, just a number of thank yous. Thank you to Erica for managing the crowd this evening. That is never easy, so appreciate that. I think when we have passionate community members about a topic, it's predictable that it's not going to stay on track 100% of the time, but I think thought it was well managed, and I appreciate the people working to stay on track. A couple more thank yous. First of all, to Travis for managing and facilitating this entire process. In Hillsboro, for the last several years, when you talk about sex ed or if you talk about school-based health center, it brings out a lot of passion in the community, and the professionalism which he addressed this, and the way that he learned and listened along the way, and continue to move the process forward. I just really appreciate that. So thank you, Travis, for all your work on that. Someone that a lot of people may not know is Kristen Blomberg in the front row there. And she is behind-the-scenes architect of a lot of the curriculum that you've seen there, and has also been the person that has been managing a number of the changes as we've been responsive to the community's feedback. So Kristen, thank you. She also is the person that teaches the curriculum for Aaron's Law to our kids, and just has been instrumental in moving this work forward and making sure that all of our students are recognized and have a voice in our school district. So Kristen, thank you. And then finally to the board, I'm sure that most board members did not decide to run for the board thinking they would end up in the middle of a controversy like this, and to hang in there throughout this entire process, and to engage with community members, and to understand their position, to dive into the curriculum the way you did, and just to continue to learn along the way. I just really appreciate that. You've handled it with grace and professionalism, and I'm just so appreciative of the manner in which you've engaged our community. And tonight, I think you made a courageous decision that allowed us to make sure that we are honoring and accepting and welcoming all of our community, and not just a portion of it. So thank you for your efforts as well.
Thank you, Mike. And with that, we'll move to our board of directors time. So we'll start at the end with Jackie and work our way over.
Okay, first I want to thank Glencoe, especially Lori back there. Thank you for manning everything and letting us interrupt your rehearsal. Greatly appreciated. You're awesome. I want to thank Jill for what you said about the teachers. That was one of my questions and kind of concerns that I had, so thank you for alleviating that. Erica, you rocked it. Good job. I know that's really tough, so very well done. I want to thank Hillsboro Police Department and our security officers and SROs for being here. I know it made me feel calmer, so thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it, I'm done.
Nobody's here to hear it, but I appreciate how respectful, for the most part, everything was. It's pretty good. So on the personal side, I'll share that I had lunch with a Marine today who was in Bahrain 4 days ago, and sort of casually during lunch, she mentioned that she realized she's bi. And she would appreciate that we passed this today, so thanks.
I think I have probably said enough for tonight.
That's it? Wow.
Yes, I want to echo my gratitude for Glencoe High School as well as the HPD and the SROs. Thank you guys so much for facilitating tonight and making us feel very, very safe. I want to thank Travis. I know that you have been kind of the face of the CSE curriculum adoption, and you have faced a lot of the praise as well as a lot of the criticism behind it, but I know that it was you and a team of people behind you working on this, so thank you so much just for your professionalism throughout this whole process. And I also want to take this time to congratulate Michelle on the short-term investment board appointment. I think that's super exciting, and they are definitely blessed to have you, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'm just going to echo the thanks, but I'm going to move on to Halloween. I went to McKinney's Fall Festival on Friday and Dia de los Muertos celebration, and that was awesome and a lot of fun. And my daughter and my nephews thoroughly enjoyed themselves, and we're looking forward to Halloween and dressing up. So, and you know, we've been doing all the fall activities, the pumpkin patch and everything like that. And, you know, trying to be in the moment with them at this, and then also with this curriculum, you know, making sure that I'm keeping up on emails and really just taking the time to reflect on it. I'm proud of what we did here today, and yeah, that's it for me.
I'd just like to say I love my sisters and brothers on the school board. It is an honor and a privilege. I can't tell you how much.
And your children.
Sisters and brothers.
And children.
Yeah, sisters and brothers. We're all board members. And profound respect for everybody in the district at every level who had a hand in this. The logistics, the security, the months of curriculum development. It was awesome. And it's very satisfying to know that as the elected officials, we could come in at our appropriate time and engage with the community in a way that I think really reflected who we are as a board. I was profoundly pleased to be one of 7 in a unanimous vote where we spoke with one voice. And we all know we have different concerns and issues, and yet we came together as a board and really supported our district. We engaged with the community and made a decision that was like powerful. And a lot of people in the community who are watching us, they take great comfort in that. And I think those who really weren't in favor also are realistic. A 7-0 vote is a pretty powerful statement. And so I think our decisiveness is going to serve us well. And let's see, I had one other thing I wanted to say, but I cannot remember what it was. So again, thank you. I love each and one of you like sisters and brothers, and I'm proud to serve in this group. Oh, and especially with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I got my mic over here. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Kristen, unsung hero in the backdrop, thank you so much for all your work, especially to HPD and our security officers, Alex. And I think we all mentioned how much we really like being prepared and feeling safe and making sure that we can run a meeting without having to worry about that is a load off our shoulders. So we really appreciate all the work that you guys put into planning and making sure that we were prepared. I also want to say that, you know, change is really hard, even when it's a positive thing, even when it's something that is good, it's still really, really hard. And I think that for all of us, we have to continue to have empathy and compassion for people, that it's going to take a little while for the changes to sink in and to accept, because they're part of our community too. And me being up here and being the chair of this board is a huge change from whatever we've had in the past. And I know that, and that is the reality, is that we're changing. We are celebrating our diversity, but we are also moving beyond inclusivity and moving towards creating a sense of belonging for people in our community. And that's really what is at the heart of this work, and making sure that people feel like they do belong in Hillsboro and they belong in our school district. And so I'm very thankful to serve on this board with all of you, and I thank you for your courage and your diligence in reading and listening attentively and making sure that you took on all that feedback and all those viewpoints and perspective, because that's our job and that's our role. And we are elected to this position by the people in this community who wanted to see something different. And I want to make sure that they know and understand that even when it's something different and it creates change, that we are still being mindful and want to be respectful of all those different viewpoints. So I thank you all for your time tonight, and with that, we are adjourned.